Chapter 42. Seeing this, Nian Bing couldn't help but exclaim in her heart. This must be the plain tremor method that her master had mentioned. Cha Ji had once mentioned to Nian Bing that in making noodles, there was a most profound method called the plain tremor method. Even Cha Ji himself didn't know how to make noodles. Through the plain tremor method, one could continuously increase the toughness and ductility of the noodles during the collision with an even force. The plain tremor method couldn't be more suitable for thin noodles. However, Nian Bing was a little worried. If the noodles were folded by another layer, would they be cooked because they were too thin when they were put into the water? Finally, the vibration of the noodles was maintained until the moment the water in the iron pot boiled. Ming Hui suddenly left the chopping board, pulled out her left hand like lightning, and raised her right hand high, making the 4096 noodles completely suspended in the air. Her left arm blocked the middle of the noodles, and her right hand caught the noodles with the noodles. In the process of stretching and pulling, 8192 noodles appeared, and not a single one was broken. It looked like a marvelous skill that made people gasp in amazement. With a light flick, the noodles returned to their original length of 4096 noodles. Ming Hui swung her left hand, and with her right hand, she easily put the noodles into the boiling water. The iron pot was very large, with a diameter of more than 1 meter. Ming Hui put the noodles on the edge of the iron pot, and then immediately picked up a pair of chopsticks. The front end of the chopsticks separated to two sides. She didn't pick up the noodles, but quickly spun them in the middle of the iron pot at the boiling water. At this moment, her hands suddenly turned milky white. In the steaming steam, they were translucent like sparkling pearls. When the steam condensed into water droplets appeared on her hands, it reminded Nian Bing of a sentence that Cha Ji had said before. The moon in the sea has tears. She stirred faster and faster. The whole pot of water was spinning rapidly under the movement of the pair of chopsticks, and the noodles also moved rhythmically in the spinning. The originally boiling water was no longer bubbling because of the rapid stirring. Nian Bing exclaimed, I understand now. This is the water-breaking face protecting technique. It's amazing. The face-breaking method referred to stirring the boiling water into a whirlpool shape, so that although the temperature of the whole pot of water reached the boiling point, it didn't boil. In this way, when cooking, the food could be evenly heated, and the shape of the food would not be affected by the bubbles when the water boiled. The requirement of rotating was not difficult. Any chef, after a long period of practice, could use chopsticks to stir a pot of water into a whirlpool. The difficulty lay in the fact that she was stirring boiling water. Although the water did not come into contact with the water, the temperature above the boiling water would definitely not be too high. This required the chef to not be affected by the boiling water in any way, and his hands had to be steady. Therefore, this method of breaking the water to protect the surface became very difficult. The chopsticks suddenly left the water, and the boiling water in the iron pot was still spinning rapidly due to inertia. Ming Hui took a large bowl and opened a metal bucket beside it. She scooped out a light yellow broth from inside. The broth looked very transparent, and there was not a trace of impurities in it. When it was placed in the bowl, it looked like a huge yellow crystal. This was the prepared beef broth. The chopsticks reached into the pot like lightning, and Ming Hui gently lifted all the noodles out of the boiling water and put them into the bowl. After the steaming noodles were immersed in the beef broth, the bowl suddenly became half full. The chopsticks in Ming Hui's hand cleverly moved the noodles in the beef broth, first clockwise, then counterclockwise, and then counterclockwise. Only then did it stop, and the slightly yellow noodles were neatly placed at the bottom of the bowl. She took a large metal ladle, scooped a spoonful of hot broth from the pot, and poured it on the topmost part. Then she reached into the metal bucket, and took out a few thin strips of meat about an inch wide and as thin as paper, and a few pieces of white radish cooked in the beef broth, and put them on the noodles. Finally, she pinched a handful of coriander and sprinkled it in the broth. Then she put down the bowl and dripped a few drops of bright red chili oil. Beef broth noodle soup, please taste it. Ming Hui's forehead was slightly sweaty, and her hands returned to their original color. She looked at Nian Bing, and her eyes were full of confidence. Nian Bing did not say much. He nodded to her, took the chopsticks in Ming Hui's hand, and began to eat. I want to eat too. Leave some for me. Hey, don't eat so fast. Xuejing was dissatisfied and wanted to snatch Nian Bing's south strip. In fact, Nian Bing did not eat fast at all. He just ate a few noodles, a piece of beef strip, and a mouthful of broth. He handed the chopsticks to Xuejing, sighed, and looked at Ming Hui with admiration in his eyes. I'm convinced. Since I left my master, this is the first time I sincerely admire a chef. The beef noodles you made are absolutely worthy of the words first-grade noodle dish. Ming Hui's ugly face was slightly red, and she said, Brother Nian Bing, you flatter me. Wow, it's delicious. I usually don't like to eat noodles the most, but why are these noodles so delicious? Ming Hui, why are your noodles so thin, but they don't feel soft at all? Every noodle is like a somersault and it tastes so good. Also, the noodles don't stick to each other at all. And the meat, is this the beef that you cut? The taste is so good and the broth is also good. It should be beef bone broth. And that's not right, beef bone broth doesn't seem to be so fresh. And the fragrance is a little strange. It's clearly the fragrance of beef broth, but why do I have a special feeling? Xuejing's originally refined eating manners were completely gone. The beef noodles were not hot, and other than Nian Bing eating a little, the rest would enter her stomach in a while. Ming Hui covered her mouth and chuckled and said, Sister Xuejing, eat slowly. If you still want to eat, I'll make more for you. Don't rush. Nian Bing smiled and said, It's already very good that she can make so much. She's worthy of being the successor of Cool Breeze Temple. Ming Hui, let me talk about the characteristics of your beef noodles in clear broth. You can see if I'm right. After muttering to himself for a while, he then continued, The beef noodles you made have the essence of traditional beef noodles. The first clear, second white, third red, fourth green, and fifth yellow characteristics are completely reflected. The first clear is the broth clear, the second white is the radish white, the third red is the chili oil red, the fourth green is the coriander green, and the fifth yellow is the noodles yellow. The refreshing and rich colors stimulate your appetite. Not only that, but you also added in your own innovation. Just the fineness of the noodles is something I can't do. That tremor noodle technique is indeed mysterious, to be able to pull the noodles so thin and still maintain a certain degree of toughness. It's much finer than a nest of silk, but it still has strength and won't affect the taste. What I admire the most is your method of breaking water to protect the noodles. Even my master can't do that. I think your right hand must have practiced some special skill that can make it not afraid of the heat. However, under the steam, it's not enough to not be afraid of the heat. Without a firm willpower, it's absolutely impossible to keep your hand stable. It's really admirable. The noodles are good noodles, and at the same time, the soup is also good soup. Just as Jing said, your beef soup is made from beef bones, the best New Year's meat, and refined butter. However, it's not that simple. In this beef soup, you added at least 3 kinds of herbs. However, these herbs not only won't affect the taste of the beef soup, but will also completely set off the freshness of the beef soup. At the same time, the taste of the herbs will also be integrated into the beef soup. After feeling the freshness of the beef soup, you will immediately feel the fragrance of the herbs. The two tastes perfectly mix together to become the best quality beef soup. It's really amazing. As for the beef, it's not simply cut, but its original shape. The most delicious meat on the beef is not the beef eye on the chest, nor any thick inner muscle, but the beef ribs on the ribs. It's really the best choice. Combining these, I dare say, on the whole continent, you can't find a beef noodle soup that can surpass your. I'm convinced, completely convinced. Ming Hui's eyes flashed with surprise. Big brother, you're absolutely right. Except for the 3 kinds of herbs that you didn't mention, the rest are exactly the same. You deserve to be called the Ice and Fire Chef. Xuejing stroked her stomach contentedly and came to the 2 people's side. She looked at Nian Bing with some doubts. The beef noodle soup is really delicious, but is it really as complicated as you said? Sister Minghui, you don't have to be afraid of being shocked. Feel free to be shocked. I support you. I think he must have said something wrong. Minghui shook his head and said, No, there's nothing wrong at all. Even if it's me, at most, I just added the names of the 3 kinds of herbs. Big Brother Nian Bing's cooking skills are definitely better than mine. Big Brother, it's your turn now. I want to see what your ice and fire cooking skills are like. Can I? Nian Bing smiled and said, After eating such delicious beef noodle soup, how can I hide it? Speaking of this, he couldn't help but look at Xuejing. The one who really ate a lot was her. Before he had time to eat, there was only an empty bowl left. My poor stomach. Although that was what he thought, Nian Bing did not stop what he was doing. He walked in front of the chopping board, thought for a moment, and quickly decided what he was going to do. He first washed his hands, then removed the cloth and took out a piece of noodles that was exactly the same as the one Minghui had just given him. He smiled and said, I've eaten your noodles, so I'll return the favor. I'll make you a bowl of noodles too. Yours is beef noodles in clear broth, and mine is the best cold noodles. There's no material here that I need, so I can only use some trick. As he spoke, he began the process of kneading the noodles. He knew that if he didn't use some unique skills, he would definitely be looked down upon by Minghui. He didn't want others to say that he relied on magic to cook delicious food. The dough quickly turned into a ball in Nian Bing's hands. His hands moved slowly and each stroke was full of strength. Gradually, his movements became faster. Every time he pressed, the dough would be kneaded into a non-existent state. As his movements became faster and faster, Nian Bing's hands seemed to be boneless as he kneaded the dough with his palms. The shadows of his palms completely enveloped the dough, and the existence of the dough could no longer be seen. His palms were like a ball, protecting the dough completely. Minghui opened his eyes wide and gasped, This is the kneading method of separating tendons and dislocating bones. It actually exists. Xuejing said in surprise, Separating tendons and dislocating bones? Could it be that the joint between his hand and the bowl was separated? Minghui shook his head and said, That's not it. This kneading method is extremely difficult to master. The main reason is the flexibility of the wrist. Only when the wrist can be twisted in any direction can it succeed. It's just like separating tendons and bones. This kneading method has another name. It's called the separating tendons and dislocating bones wishful hands. It's one of the 7 great forbidden techniques of a cooked wheaten pastry chef, along with my water-breaking face protecting technique. Through the separating tendons and dislocating bones wishful hands, the strength of the noodles can be increased to the extreme while maintaining the moisture of the dough. Generally speaking, the dough made with this method must be complemented by a special cooking method. Otherwise, even if it's cooked, you won't be able to bite it. In our cooking world, there's a saying that as long as you can master one of the 7 great forbidden techniques of a cooked wheaten pastry chef, you can become a top-notch cooked wheaten pastry chef. I only know the water-breaking face protecting mysterious jade hand, which is ranked 4th among the 7 great forbidden techniques. I didn't expect that Big Brother Nian Bing would actually know the separating tendons and dislocating bones wishful hands, which is ranked 3rd. It seems that I'm inferior to him in the field of cooked wheaten pastry. Nian Bing's movements stopped without any warning. He turned his head and smiled at Minghui, saying, No, you're wrong. The 7 great forbidden techniques can't prove anything. As an item-level cooked wheaten pastry chef, you still need to combine all kinds of abilities. In the field of cooked wheaten pastry, I definitely can't compare to you. With a flash of green light, the proud heaven blade appeared in Nian Bing's hand. The blade emitted a light groan and spiritual energy overflowed. Good blade. Is this your kitchen knife? Minghui asked in astonishment. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, It's one of the knives. In terms of pure knife skills, it's the most suitable. The blade's name is Proud Heaven. It can also be called the gentle groan of the wind of freedom. I can't compare to you in terms of craftsmanship, so let's use the word skillful. With a strange twist of his right wrist, he held the Proud Heaven blade upside down. His left hand held the round dough that was a full circle smaller than before. Minghui knew that what Nian Bing was going to do next was definitely not simple. She could see from Nian Bing's eyes that he was even more focused than her. But what was strange was that the object of his focus wasn't the dough, but the blade. The gentle groan of the wind of freedom, Proud Heaven blade. The water in the iron pot was still boiling. Nian Bing's blade finally moved. It looked very slow, as if it was a green mist. However, the shadow of the blade could no longer be seen clearly. One could only vaguely sense that the tip of the blade was stabbing downwards into the dough. His wrist was trembling as he asked. A piece of white dough was picked up into the pot. This was the prelude. Following that, pieces of white dough, as if they were threaded, a string of white light appeared 3 inches apart. With a clear sound of water, they poured into the pot. Nian Bing's movements were very fast. He always held the handle of the blade in reverse. His expression was very relaxed. His eyes were always on the shadow of the blade that could not be seen clearly. Minghui seemed to have thought of something. She quickly walked to the side of the iron pot. When she saw the boiling water in the pot, her whole body was completely stunned. Her mouth slowly spat out 4 words, Jin, Su, Guan. Xuejing doubtfully came to the side of the iron pot. What is Jin, Su? She also saw that the boiling noodles in the pot were actually words, and not the noodles she had imagined. The words were very clear, and they were 2 words joined together. They were about 1 inch long and half an inch wide. They were clearly the 2 words Minghui. The strokes were strong and forceful, and each set of words was exactly the same. There was no difference at all. How did this happen? Minghui looked at the iron wok in a daze. One of the 5 famous knife skills in the cooking world, brocade void. I'm actually lucky enough to see it. Master, do you know, I actually saw the brocade void. Xuejing shook Minghui and asked with concern, Are you okay? Minghui shook his head and said, Thank you. I'm fine. I was just too excited. It had to be known that the difficulty of the 5 great knife techniques of the culinary world was even higher than the 7 great forbidden techniques of the cooked wheaten food master. The 5 famous knife skills have long been lost. The 7 great forbidden hand techniques could be mastered through talent and hard work. However, the 5 great swords required extraordinary comprehension and hard work throughout the years. I had heard my master introduce the 5 great swords to me before. At that time, I had thought that it was unbelievable. I had thought that it was a miraculous technique that could not possibly exist. Only today did I realize that I was wrong. I had been so narrow-minded. Brocade Void appeared in front of me. This was the swordsmanship A11, which was ranked 4th among the 5 great swords. Her body was trembling slightly. If she knew that Nian Bing also knew the Rain Dragon's dance, which was ranked 1st among the 5 famed saber techniques, what would she think? Even though Nian Bing hadn't completely mastered the dance of the dancing dragon, it was still the number 1 knife technique in the culinary world. Under Ao Tian's mysterious poking, the noodles in Nian Bing's hand gradually shrank. In just a dozen breaths, he had already completed all the movements. He picked up the chopsticks and stirred in the pot. At the same time, his left hand flashed with a red light and pressed on the edge of the pot. The moment his left hand touched the iron pot, the chopsticks quickly left. At the same time, he switched the chopsticks for the pot lid and pressed it on the pot with lightning speed. Minghui and Xuejing could clearly feel the entire pot shaking violently. The pot had completely turned red, and a scorching aura filled the entire kitchen. In just 3 breaths, Nian Bing's left hand left the pot. His right hand picked up the pot lid and put it aside. Immediately, steam rose up like a mushroom cloud. His left hand grabbed a hedge and scooped up the noodles from the pot. He immediately dipped them in the cold water. At the same time, his right hand pressed on the bucket of cold water. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. There was no hesitation. If Ming Hui had not seen Yen Bing for the first time, he would have suspected that he had entered his kitchen before. He seemed to be very familiar with the location of every tool. There was not a trace of error. Yen Bing's left hand that was holding the hedge loosened. Xuejing and Ming Hui were surprised to find that the hedge actually stood still in the water. Yen Bing seemed to have finished his work. He turned around and smiled at the two girls. I used the tendon and bone dislocation technique to increase the toughness of the noodles by 3 times. I used high temperature to cook it quickly. Now I will completely freeze it, using the 2 extreme methods of ice and fire to destroy the internal structure of the noodles. In this way, the tendon and bone dislocation technique produced by the noodles will not be difficult to chew. At the same time, the aroma of the noodles will be fully displayed. The texture is extremely strong, and it will not be difficult to chew. Displaying the original taste of the ingredients has always been my pursuit. Miss Ming Hui, I want to borrow your beef soup. After that, he took out a clean, empty bowl and scooped out half a bowl of beef soup from the bucket. He added a little vinegar, a little sugar, and some chili oil and quickly mixed them well. Then, he grabbed the hedgerow. Under the effect of the fire element, the hedgerow left the bucket with the frozen noodles. The ice gradually melted, and when the noodles were exposed, he put the ice into the bowl. Under the effect of the ice cubes, the temperature of the beef soup at room temperature quickly dropped. The ice completely melted, and the noodles appeared in the bowl. Yen Bing gently stirred twice to let the soup and noodles merge completely. He pressed his left hand on the surface of the soup bowl, and a thin layer of ice appeared. It was as if the entire bowl was frozen. Well, it's done. Please taste my bowl of Icefire noodles. Yen Bing confidently smiled at the two girls. Ming Hui and Xuejing looked at each other sluggishly. The two picked up clean chopsticks and walked to the front of the bowl. The chopsticks easily broke the thin ice, and they each put a piece of noodles into their mouth. Ming Hui raised her head and looked at Yen Bing, her eyes full of surprise. The cold noodles, with the cold noodles aroma, plus the 3 flavors of sour, sweet, and spicy, as well as the beef soup's own freshness, it's really delicious. As expected of the Icefire cooking demon, I'm far inferior. Yen Bing modestly said, Miss Ming Hui, please don't say that. I borrowed the noodles you needed and the beef soup you prepared to have this effect. When it comes to noodles, I'm far inferior to Mississippi. It's just a trick. Ming Hui's eyes flashed. Are the tendon and bone dislocation technique and the brocade void technique also a trick? You two talk, I'll eat first. Xuejing didn't care about the technique or cooking skills. She only knew that the bowl of noodles in front of her was to her taste. Although she was already full from the beef noodle soup, she still couldn't resist the temptation of delicious food. Yen Bing smiled. There's no end to cooking. We still have a lot to learn, don't we? Ming Hui took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, there's no end to cooking. It seems that I shouldn't be a frog at the bottom of a well. There's still a lot to learn. Big brother Yen Bing, thank you for your guidance. Yen Bing sincerely said, Miss Ming Hui, you're welcome. I've also learned a lot from you. After leaving the noodle dish, Ming Hui had already reached an agreement with Xuejing. Xuejing wrote her a recommendation letter. Soon, she would go to Ice Snow City to train at the Breeze Temple. Silence, have you found a place to stay? Yen Bing asked softly as they walked on the street. Xuejing took the initiative to hold Yen Bing's arm and shook her head. Not yet. I rushed to the city as soon as I arrived at Ice Orchid City. There were fewer people on the streets at night, so I wanted to walk more. I could leave the city early tomorrow morning and continue to look for you in the direction of the Ottoman Empire's capital. I know you don't have a horse. This time, you didn't even ride one. I'm so tired. How are you going to make it up to me? Right now, she was extremely excited. Not only had she found Nianbing, she had also helped the Clear Wind sect recruit an extremely capable master of cooked wheaten food. This time, even if she returned to the Clear Wind sect, her father wouldn't blame her, right? Nianbing struggled a little unnaturally, but Xuejing insisted on holding his arm. As a magician, he indeed couldn't compete with Xuejing in terms of strength. Helpless, he could only let her do as she wished. Xuejing's body emitted a faint virgin fragrance from time to time, causing Nianbing's heart to throb. He was still a virgin. A virgin would always be easily attracted to a beautiful woman, even if he had a mature mind. In terms of figure, among all the girls he knew, perhaps only Feng Nu could compare to her. Make it up to you? Didn't I just treat you to a meal? This isn't enough compensation. Nianbing didn't dare to look at Xuejing and quickened his steps. Xuejing smiled. Of course not. You want to dismiss me with a meal? Do you think I'm a beggar? Nianbing smiled bitterly. Then what do you want me to do? Xuejing said. First of all, you'll be responsible for all the expenses along the way. You're not allowed to object. Secondly, when there's no restaurant, you have to personally cook for me. I don't eat dry food. I'm very sad to eat dry food all the way. Nianbing made a surprised expression. No way, you're the dignified Cool Breeze sect's eldest miss. But you want to eat a poor person like me. You're so heartless. Xuejing giggled. I'm a girl. Don't tell me you want me to pay? I've already heard from Ling that the magic scrolls you make are very valuable. It shouldn't be a problem to support me. I don't care. In any case, you have to agree. It seems that I can only admit that I'm unlucky. I hope there's still a room in the Lanshin Hotel. He could only hope to reach the capital of the Ottoman Empire as soon as possible. At that time, he could get rid of this crazy woman. Sigh, why is it that the more I don't want to have sex with women, the more beautiful women appear around me? Master told me to find a girl I love. But what is love between a man and a woman? No matter how smart Nianbing was, he was still like a pure child in this aspect. Xuejing chasing after him made him feel something, but he couldn't explain it clearly. It's too late even if there's a room. It's already so late, who's going to open a room for me? Nianbing, you should be staying in a standard room. Anyway, it's 2 beds. I'll just share with you. After saying this, Xuejing couldn't help but shyly lower her head. Nianbing was shocked. What? No, you're a girl. How can you live with me? Xuejing snorted and said, It's all your fault. Just now we wasted so much time. Don't tell me you want me to sleep on the streets? I'm a girl and I don't care. What do you care about? Don't tell me you have some bad intentions? Nianbing looked at Xuejing in shock. You really want to live with me in the same room? That's not good for your reputation. You'll have to get married in the future. If your husband finds out, I'm afraid. Xuejing felt an inexplicable irritation in her heart. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you think I'll eat you up? It's none of your business whether I get married or not. At least tonight I'll have a place to sleep peacefully. Humph. Miss, are you sure? Nianbing asked tentatively. Xuejing snorted and said, Of course I'm sure. Are you afraid that I'll rape you? Speaking of this, even she couldn't help but laugh. She cursed in her heart, Xuejing, oh Xuejing, what's wrong with you now? How can you even say such words? Nianbing pondered for a moment. He really didn't have a better idea at the moment. Just as Xuejing had said, there were 2 beds in his room. Although it wasn't appropriate for a man and a woman to share a room, it shouldn't be a problem as long as he was open-minded. Thinking of this, he could only nod his head. Xuejing let go of Nianbing's arm and asked, When do you plan to leave Ice Orchid City? Nianbing thought for a moment and said, Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. I heard that there's a famous snack in Ice Orchid City called the Staring Food. It sounds very strange. Even Master didn't tell me before. I must try it. Also, I sold some magic scrolls in exchange for white magic scrolls. I need at least a day to make some magic scrolls for self-defense. Okay. I'm not in a hurry. Xuejing was of course not in a hurry. She couldn't wait for Nian Bing to walk slower. That way, she would have more time. When the two returned to Lanxin Hotel, it was already late at night. The security guard on duty let them enter the hotel after Nian Bing showed the room key. However, the security guard didn't leave. When Nian Bing was about to bring Xuejing upstairs, they were stopped by the security guard. I'm sorry, sir. We are a proper hotel. We don't allow guests to have any special activities in the hotel, the security guard said rudely. Nian Bing was stunned and asked, What do you mean? The security guard looked at Nian Bing and then looked at Xuejing, who was dressed in red. He said indifferently, You should know what I mean. It seems that one of the two of you isn't our guest. Nian Bing was quick-witted and immediately understood the security guard's meaning. She couldn't help feeling angry and amused. This is my friend. She just came to Ice Orchid City at night. It's too late now and we can't book a room. So I can only bring her back to my place to suffer for the night and book a room for her alone tomorrow. Otherwise, you can book a room for me now. The security guard snorted and said, No, I don't have the right to book a room. Only one of you can go up. He thought to himself, this gigolo actually managed to seduce such a beautiful woman just by relying on his good looks. Humph, I won't let you get away with it. Although Xuejing wasn't as smart as Nian Bing, how could she not understand the security guard's words? She was furious and said, Bullsh *T, who do you think we are? Get lost, or don't blame me for taking action. As she said this, she pressed her hand on the hilt of her sword. Immediately, a red fighting spirit wrapped around her delicate body. Nian Bing wasn't angry at this time. Instead, he was secretly grateful to the security guard in front of him. Previously, because of Xuejing's face, he couldn't refuse directly, but he still felt that it was inappropriate to be in the same room with her. Now that the security guard was obstructing him, he could go with the flow. He hurriedly stopped Xuejing and said, Silence, don't make trouble. Did you forget what you promised me? I'm right. This is for the safety of the guests. Here's the key, go up and sleep. Chapter 43. Xuejing's heart was racing because she was going to stay in the same room as Nian Bing, and she was at a loss for what to do. After all, she was a young lady. Although she liked Nian Bing, she knew that it was inappropriate for her to stay in the same room as him. However, she felt that this was an opportunity and didn't want to let it go. Hence, she was hesitating. At this moment, Nian Bing heaved a sigh of relief. She also heaved a sigh of relief, but she was somewhat disappointed. Nian Bing, what about you? What are you going to do if I stay in your room? Nian Bing smiled and said, You don't have to worry about me. Isn't there a sofa in the lobby? I'll just make do with it for the night. Xuejing glared fiercely at the security guard and snorted before going upstairs. Seeing that Xuejing had left, Nian Bing the security guard said, No one is allowed to stay in the lobby. If you want to stay in the hotel, please come back tomorrow morning. I'm going to close the door. Please leave immediately. Nian Bing was stunned for a moment and frowned. Are you picking on me? I don't think I've offended you. The security guard said coldly, I'm just following the rules. Please leave. Nian Bing naturally wouldn't stoop to the level of an ordinary person. He had no choice but to walk out of Lanxin Hotel again. It was already late at night, and the October weather was slightly chilly. Nian Bing couldn't help but shiver as the night dew blew against his body. He hurriedly circulated the fire elements in his body, and only then did he feel a little better. Although the night dew brought a chill to him, Xuejing wasn't by his side at this moment. In the cold air, his mind gradually became active. Xuejing sneaked out from home to look for me. This already proves that she has feelings for me. Xuejing likes me. Furthermore, she's not as weak as Long Ling. If she continues to follow me, Who knows what else will happen on the way to the capital of the Ottoman Empire? If I can't control myself, then it'll be troublesome. Perhaps he didn't have feelings for Xuejing, but he definitely had desires. How could he remain calm in front of a beauty? It was very, very difficult. In the depths of Nian Bing's heart, other than his mother, there was only one other woman. He pitied Long Ling, admired Luo Ro, and was even a little afraid of Xuejing. He was afraid of her hysterics, but he definitely didn't love her from the bottom of his heart. Therefore, he really didn't want to spend too much time with any of the three women. Even if he didn't fall for them, once Xuejing's feelings for him deepened, the matter would be more difficult to solve. He couldn't hit her or drive her away, right? Thinking of this, Nian Bing's mind raced, thinking of a suitable method. Suddenly, his heart moved. Why did Xuejing like him? Perhaps it was because of some of his advantages that attracted her. If he let her see more of his shortcomings, perhaps her feelings for him would gradually cool down. Xuejing was a girl who dared to love and dared to hate, and her temper was almost at the slightest provocation. Xuejing. Sorry, I can only do this. A strange expression appeared on his face. Nian Bing walked towards the dark street. Soon, he found his destination. In the middle of the night, there was only one kind of shop that didn't close, and that was a brothel. Hey, mister. Have you come to play? Although it's a little late now, we still have many girls here. A madam who looked to be in her 30s or 40s brought Nianbing in. This was only a medium-sized brothel. As soon as he entered the door, the fragrance of cosmetics almost made Nianbing fall down. At this time, he couldn't help but feel a little flustered. He knew nothing about brothels, and didn't even know what a brothel did. After all, when Zhaji taught him how to cook, it was impossible for him to also teach him about brothels. The reason why he knew about the existence of brothels was because he heard a conversation in Ice Snow City. It was a couple. The husband was like a frosted eggplant being scolded by his wife. From their conversation, Nianbing heard that the husband went to a place called a brothel, and his wife couldn't tolerate it. He still remembered the soul-stirring scene at that time. If it wasn't for the fact that murdering one's husband was a serious crime, he didn't doubt that the wife would have used a kitchen knife to kill her husband. Later, he asked Long Ling what kind of place a brothel was. Long Ling, who had never lost her temper, blushed and scolded him a few times before running away. From then on, Nianbing guessed that this so-called opportunity should be a place that men liked and women hated. Usually, when he walked on the road, he had seen a few brothels, so he could still distinguish them from the outside. Coughing awkwardly, Nianbing looked at the brothel keeper, whose eyes were shining, and said, "Is there a place to stay here?" The last time he heard the couple quarrel, he vaguely heard the wife scolding the husband for not returning home at night in a brothel. Presumably, people could stay in a brothel. Originally, with Nianbing's ordinary clothes, it wouldn't attract the brothel keeper's attention. However, his appearance was too handsome, causing the brothel keeper's heart to ripple. She thought to herself that if such a handsome young man could sleep with her for a night, it would be worth it even if she had to pay for it. Stay? Of course there is, but I don't know how Sir wants to stay. Girls, there are guests, come and receive the guests. At this time, it was already late at night. Most of the prostitutes either already had guests or were ready to sleep. Hearing the call of the brothel keeper, the prostitutes who didn't have guests were impatient. One by one, they walked down from the attic and looked at the hall with sleepy eyes. When their gazes landed on Nianbing, all the prostitutes stopped what they were doing. Nianbing suddenly shivered all over. He saw 7 or 8 young women coming down from the stairs. Each of them wore thin clothes. Most of their arms and thighs were bare. Some of them didn't even cover their chests well, revealing their full cleavage. He hadn't been in society for a long time. When did he see such an erotic scene? He suddenly felt the blood in his body gradually boiling, and his heartbeat inexplicably accelerated. The prostitutes finally reacted. It was more appropriate to describe them as a swarm. In just an instant, they surrounded Nian Bing in the center. It was as if they had also learned martial arts. Their longing eyes and seductive postures were so moving. "Sir, come to my room. I am a famous pure jade girl." "What is a pure jade girl?" "Sir, look, is my place big? Come on, I will serve you well tonight. How about I give you a 20% discount?" 20% discount? "Sir, I'll give you a 40% discount, okay? I'm so lonely tonight." Sweat, cold sweat flowed down from his forehead. Even when facing the Dragon King with a golden back, Nian Bing was not so nervous. He suddenly found that the method he chose was too bad. Such an erotic scene made him, a virgin, fall into infinite embarrassment. What should I do? What should I do now? He wanted to say something, but he really couldn't say it. Looking at the coy women, he found that he had a layer of goosebumps on his body. God, save me. Okay, girls, don't quarrel. Let this gentleman choose by himself. Sir, who do you choose? The procuress was experienced and knowledgeable. When she saw Nian Bing's embarrassed face, she knew that it was his first time to come to such a place. If it was someone else, she would be too lazy to pay attention to it. But Nian Bing's handsome appearance and stalwart figure really made the procuress tempted, so she took the initiative to come out and help. The procuress directed the girls to stand in a neat row, and she stuck to Nian Bing's side. She touched his arm with the fullness of her chest. "Sir, which girl do you want to choose? If you don't like them, what about me?" Nian Bing lowered his head to look at the madam. He had to admit that this madam, who looked to be in her 30s, was no less charming than those young girls. Furthermore, she was more mature. Her voluptuous figure, in particular, made him have the urge to spurt blood from his nose. God, is this a brothel? All the wisdom seemed to have disappeared. He asked blankly, how much does it cost to stay here for a night? Nian Bing's pure appearance made the procuress's heart itch, and some parts of her body began to change. "What money, sir? It's our honor to have you here. When the time comes, just give me a little. We have a lot of rooms here, you can choose one. Cough, then give me an empty room. I'll give you how much you want. I'll stay for one night and leave." Nian Bing's words immediately made the girls laugh. The procuress pinched the firm muscles on his forearm. "Oh, sir, don't you like us girls? When you come to us, there's no rule to sleep alone. You can choose one to accompany you." "Why is it so noisy, Mom? It's so late, why don't you close the door? There won't be any guests." A lazy voice came from upstairs. Although it was scolding, he had to admit that her voice was very moving. The faces of the prostitutes in front of Nian Bing and the madam beside him all changed. One of the prostitutes muttered in a low voice, it's over. Once she comes, I won't have a share of this little virgin." Nian Bing looked upstairs and saw a woman wearing a pink dress walking down the stairs. This woman's figure was well proportioned and full. Her fair and pretty face was lightly powdered. Her body exuded an elegant smell. She seemed to be a little tired. She held onto the railing as she walked down the stairs. Her brows were slightly wrinkled, but she was able to make shuang xian li jia huazhong xian li nali 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 nali. The brothel keeper sighed in her heart. Nian Bing smiled apologetically and said, "Sir, look, this is our top courtesan. Although her head is a little high, it's definitely worth it. Rui, there's a guest." The girl slightly raised her head. When her hazy eyes met with Nian Bing's clear eyes, her beautiful big eyes suddenly lit up. She didn't lose her composure like the other prostitutes before. She slowly walked downstairs, with a blooming smile on her face. She walked to Nian Bing and said, "Hello, sir, my name is Rui." Nian Bing had gradually adapted to the atmosphere here, and was not at a loss like before. He nodded slightly and said, "Hello? Rui turned to look at the procuress beside her. Mom, let Rui entertain this gentleman today, okay? The procuress wanted to say no, but Rui was the top prostitute of this brothel. Most of the guests here came because of her face. She could offend anyone, but she couldn't offend this money tree. She hurriedly said, "Okay, of course, Rui, then you take this gentleman to your room." A woman was always easier to deal with than a group of women. Although Nian Bing didn't fully understand the purpose of this brothel, he had a good impression of this elegant girl in front of him. It was better to go with her than to be entangled by a group of vulgar women. Rui held Nian Bing's hand, and they had different feelings at the same time. Rui felt that Nian Bing's hand was slender and strong, without calluses. His hand was very warm, but it seemed to be as hard as steel. Nian Bing had a completely different feeling. Although it was not the first time he held a girl's hand, the feeling that Rui gave him was completely different. Her hand was very soft, as if there were no bones. What made Nian Bing feel most was the coldness of her hand. Her small hand was very soft, and it was very comfortable to hold. After going upstairs, Rui didn't say a word, and directly led him to the innermost room of the corridor. The decoration in the room was mostly pink. The room was very large, and it was divided into inner and outer rooms, but there was no door in the middle. There was a big bed in the inner room, surrounded by a curtain. The whole room exuded a strange atmosphere. "Sir, please sit." Rui's voice suddenly lost its previous gentleness. She pulled Nian Bing to the round table in the outer room, and pressed his shoulder to let him sit down. She poured a glass of wine and handed it to Nian Bing, and then sat down beside Nian Bing. Nian Bing drank the wine in one gulp, and a burning feeling rose in his stomach, which calmed him down a lot. However, he still asked a silly question. "Miss Rui, there is only one bed here. Where do I sleep? Why do you have to let the guest enter the room of one of you?" Rui was stunned and looked up at Nian Bing. "This is a brothel." "I know. Then why did you ask such a question?" There was a cold light in Rui's eyes. Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, although I know this is a brothel, I don't know what a brothel does. Can you tell me?" Rui didn't answer the question and said, "Then what do you do?" Nian Bing looked at Rui's gradually clear eyes, and faintly felt that something was wrong. "I am a chef." "A chef? Are you just a chef?" "I have seen a lot of people, but I have never seen a chef with such temperament like you. You are young, but you don't learn good things, and come to a brothel as a ghost. I think you are not a good person." At the end, her voice was a little colder. Nian Bing frowned slightly, and said, "Why is it that I am not a good person to come to a brothel?" Rui said disdainfully, "Men all think with their lower bodies. Don't you come here to vent your desires on women? When did you see women like us as human beings? You look good on the outside, but you are rotten on the inside." It was not until now that Nian Bing understood the real meaning of a brothel, and his heart was sweating. He hurriedly explained, "Miss Rui, don't misunderstand." Rui sneered and stood up. "Misunderstand? What is there to misunderstand? A man like you will make many women sad in the future." Nian Bing's eyes were cold and said, "Miss Rui, there is no enmity between us. Why are you so against me? Even if I came to a brothel to do that kind of thing, so what? You are supposed to serve me, not scold me here." The smile on Rui's face became colder. "Serve you? A dirty person like you wants to touch me? In that case, I'd better go." After knowing the real meaning of a brothel, although Nian Bing wanted to take the opportunity to drive Shuejing away, he couldn't bear to stay in such a place. He didn't know much about the affairs between men and women. He didn't mean to look down on prostitutes, but he felt that it was inappropriate to do these things. He stood up and was about to leave, but suddenly felt dizzy. He sat down again unconsciously. "Do you still want to go?" Rui looked at Nian Bing coldly. "Poison." Nian Bing suddenly understood a lot. He subconsciously wanted to activate the magic scroll on his body, but he couldn't concentrate. "Miss Rui, I have no enmity with you. Why do you want to harm me? Rui smiled. When you go to hell, you can ask. Nian Bing's mind was blurred, and finally he couldn't hold on and fainted. Sister, what's wrong with you today? A nimble figure jumped out from inside. It was a young girl dressed in martial arts attire. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Rui's, but she had more heroic spirit. She glanced at Nian Bing and said, "This seems to be just an ordinary guest. Why did you make him unconscious? How do you solve this?" Rui said lightly, "Rumming, take him out of the city and kill him. Do it cleanly." Sister, are you crazy? The organization strictly forbids killing people. Don't kill people who don't get paid. You are. Rumming was obviously shocked by Rui. Rui glanced at Rumming sharply and said, "I'm just getting rid of evil for the people. What's wrong with that? Look at this man. He has a good appearance, but he goes to the brothel to fool around. He looks like he's only about 20 years old. If such a person is allowed to live in the world, I don't know how many women will be harmed by him in the future. Have you forgotten how I was cheated? Don't be afraid to kill him just because he's handsome. The more such a man is, the more he deserves to be killed." Her eyes showed monstrous hatred, and her whole body seemed to be trembling slightly. The hysteria made Rumming show a trace of fear. "Go, you know what to do. I naturally have a way to explain to the brothel keeper." Rui gave Nian Bing a fierce look and waved to Rumming. Rumming didn't say anything more. She pulled Nian Bing's clothes and lightly put him on her shoulder. It seemed to be effortless. She opened the window and jumped out like a leopard cat, disappearing in a few flashes. Looking at the departing figure of Ru Meng, Ru Yi's eyes were filled with tears. None of the men are good. Handsome men are the scourge of the world. I want to kill every one of them. Only the handsome men are dead. Only then can the women live better lives. Ice Orchid City was a commercial city. Although it was located at the border of the two countries, the city gate was never closed at night. Rumming carried Nian Bing's body quietly out of the city and soon came to a quiet forest. She laid him flat on the ground. Does this person really deserve to be killed? There's no aura of fighting in his body. He's just an ordinary person. Sister is too much. She can't kill innocent people. Forget it, he's just an ordinary person anyway. I want to explain to him clearly and let him leave here quickly. The mainland is so big. Sister won't be able to see him in the future. And he's really handsome. He's much more handsome than my previous brother-in-law. No wonder Sister had such a big reaction today. Speaking of this, Rumming shook her head helplessly. She took out a porcelain bottle and stuffed a pill into Nian Bing's mouth. In fact, she didn't know that it was because of her kindness that she saved her own life. Although Nian Bing lacked scrolls, he still had 4 automatic defense scrolls on him. The strongest one was level 6. If Rumming really wanted to kill him, the magic array would automatically trigger when it sensed that Nian Bing's life was threatened. With Rumming's current ability, he wouldn't even have a chance to dodge at close range. His whole body felt cold. Nian Bing woke up from his coma. And? Where is this? The darkness in front of him made him very alert. His mind immediately connected to the magic scrolls on him, ready to deal with any danger. "Mister, I'm really sorry." Hearing Rumming's voice, Nian Bing realized that there was another person beside him. He quickly stood up and took a few steps back, keeping a distance from Rumming. As Rumming's appearance was 60 to 70% similar to Rui, and his mind wasn't fully awake, he instantly mistook her for someone else. "Miss Rui, where is this place? Why did you bring me here?" Rumming said apologetically, "Mister, I'm not Rui. That's my sister. My name is Rumming. I'm really sorry about what happened today." After careful identification, Nian Bing realized that Rumming was different from Rui. Compared to Rui, Rumming was slightly thinner and taller than Rui. "Miss Rumming? I want to know what happened." Rumming was a little surprised. He didn't panic in the face of change. The handsome man in front of her wasn't as ordinary as he said. "Mister, don't misunderstand. It's like this. My sister works in the brothel for a reason. I can't tell you the specific reason. However, she's definitely not the kind of woman you think. She was hurt before, so she's more extreme. Mister, I have some money here. You should quickly leave here and don't go to Binglong City again. As she said this, she threw a few gold coins to Nianbing. Looking at the innocent girl in front of her, Nianbing said indifferently, Miss Rumring, your sister poisoned me for no reason and you're not willing to explain the matter clearly. Does Binglong City belong to your family? Why can't you let me go back? Rumring frowned slightly. Why are you so stubborn? Do you want to die? Die? Your sister wants to kill me? I don't have any enmity with her. Why does she want to kill me? Nianbing asked the doubts in her heart. At the same time, she scolded herself for being careless. She actually fell for it so easily. Rumring said helplessly, I can't say anything about my sister. Anyway, this is all I can do. If you go back to the city, I can't save you. For your own life, it's better for you to leave. After saying this, she no longer entangled with Nianbing. His figure flashed a few times before he disappeared from Nianbing's line of sight. Nianbing stood in the same place. Various thoughts kept surging in her heart. Rui, Rumring, these two names kept appearing alternately. What was going on? She was really unlucky. It seemed that bad things couldn't be done. However, after being teased like this and almost losing her life, was she going to let it go just like that? No, at least she had to find out the truth. Her thoughts were connected with the spatial ring. Spatial magic elements revolved around Nianbing's finger. The inconspicuous ring emitted a silver halo and a black robe appeared first. Then, a strange skull mask silently appeared on the robe. Nianbing first put on the mask and then used the robe to cover her body. There was a cloak on top of the robe and even her head was covered. It shrouded her easily recognizable long golden hair. I can finally use this identity again. I really didn't expect that I would use it for a brothel. O great ice goddess, lend me your wrath, and send me to the lost shore. Snowstorm. The temperature in the air gradually dropped as the blue light spots gathered around Nianbing. Snowflakes gradually appeared and revolved around her body. Directly chanting incantations to use magic was more troublesome. It required chanting to condense magic power, which would waste some time. But directly using scrolls to use magic, because enough magic power had been condensed on the scroll beforehand, the power of the magic could be fully displayed. Under the effect of the powerful magic power, the snowstorm forcibly lifted Nianbing's body and flew higher and higher. Rising into the air, she naturally saw the location of Binglong City and controlled the magic to fly towards the city. While flying, Nianbing carefully recalled everything that happened in the brothel. That woman named Rui was obviously not just a brothel. The two sisters must have some purpose for committing to the brothel. Just like what Ru Meng said, Rui must have been stimulated by something. When she first entered her room, she emitted not only coldness, but also some murderous intent. It was just that she didn't feel it much at that time. The stimulation she received should be related to men. Moreover, it was a man who was somewhat similar to her. Just like when she first met that beautiful auntie and thought of her as her mother. However, the brothel was a filthy place. Why would they hide there? This was what she had to figure out. Thinking of this, Nianbing couldn't help but secretly rejoice. It wasn't that Ru Meng let her go, but that the cup of wine she unintentionally drank was only a knockout drug and not a poison that pierced the intestines. Otherwise, no matter how many magic scrolls she had on her, they would have been useless. At this time, he had already returned to Ice Orchid City. The entire city had fallen into a deep sleep. Nianbing carefully controlled the blizzard under his feet. Before his magic power was exhausted, the blizzard would always be maintained. After this period of understanding magic, he now knew how to use magic power more rationally. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to maintain such a level 4 magic. At this time, he had already taken out his proud Heaven Blade and righteous Yang Blade. After all, he hadn't left the Ice Moon Empire yet. It was better not to use morning dew. Although it hadn't been long since he came to Ice Orchid City, Nian Bing's memory was very good. First, he flew over the city gate and found the Lanshin Hotel where he stayed. From the hotel, he immediately confirmed the location and flew towards the brothel. Perhaps it was because it was too late, the lights in the brothel were finally extinguished. Nian Bing floated in the air and had a bird's-eye view of the entire brothel. Soon, he found Rui's room and floated to the outside of the room. He hesitated for a moment. Just as he was about to take action, he heard a low voice coming from the room. His heart skipped a beat. He controlled the blizzard and pressed his body against the window to listen to the voice inside. Ru Meng seemed to have just returned. She whispered to Rui, "Sister, why aren't you asleep yet?" Rui said coldly, "Is everything done? Is it done cleanly? In this place where good and bad people mix together, we must not leave any traces behind." Ru Meng hesitated for a moment and said, "It's done. Sister, don't worry." Rui sighed softly and said, "Sister, I know that sometimes you are in a difficult position. You are too soft-hearted. You are not suitable to be an assassin. After we return from our shift, I will report to the Lord and ask him to transfer you to another position. Perhaps you can even become a warrior on the surface." "Sister, that's impossible. I was trained as a spy. How can I become a warrior?" There seemed to be a little sadness in Ru Meng's tone. Rui said, "In fact, there is nothing impossible. After all, you are not like me. I have already been exposed in front of people, but you have always been in the dark. Believe me, there will be a chance." Hearing this, Nian Bing suddenly understood a lot. These two sisters were obviously not from the Ice Moon Empire, but came here to be spies. Through the various guests in this brothel, they inquired about all kinds of information and then sent it back to their country. It seemed that he could only forget about his own matter. It was better not to get involved in this kind of conflict between countries. Thinking of this, he controlled the blizzard and was just about to leave. When he turned around, the black robe on his body inadvertently swept the window, making a slight friction sound. "Who is it?" In the low voice, a cold light came out of the window. Although it was only judged by the sound, the cold light's target was Nian Bing's chest. Nian Bing secretly knew that it was not good. He did not activate the magic scroll to protect himself. He raised his right hand, and the proud heaven blade transformed into dozens of blade shadows, cutting the cold light from different directions. Chapter 44. Ding. Dozens of collisions sounded as if there was only one sound because of the high speed. Nian Bing only felt a strong impact on his face. His chest felt like it was hit by a huge hammer and his body flew backward with the help of the impact. If it wasn't for Ao Tiandao's own blade aura that blocked most of the impact, this collision alone was enough to injure him. It was a shuttle-shaped dart that flew out, but it was already crushed by Ao Tian's sharp blade. Nian Bing's eyes revealed a clear light as he controlled the blizzard to send himself dozens of meters away. The window opened and two figures rushed out with two balls of cold light. Although the combat energy was strong, it was impossible for them to fly. When the Rui sisters found that the enemy was floating in the air, they were shocked. Before they landed, they each shot 3 darts at Nian Bing's direction. Unfortunately, Nian Bing was already prepared. Although the combat energy attached to the darts was very strong, he only controlled the blizzard to support his body and dodge the dart. The magicians in the air had more or less an advantage over the warriors on the ground. Rui and Rumming each held a gleaming sword in their hands. Rui stopped Rumming, who was about to continue attacking, and shouted coldly at Nian Bing in the air, "Who are you?" Nian Bing said indifferently, "This is not the place to talk. Follow me if you have the guts." He deliberately lowered his voice and added some hoarseness to it so that the Rui sisters couldn't recognize him. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately controlled the blizzard to fly out of the city. The Rui sisters looked at each other. They knew that their identity had been exposed and they had no choice but to chase after him. The blizzard was the fastest speed a magician could achieve in short-distance flight. Although Nian Bing saw that the Rui sisters had the strength of a swordsman, it was impossible for them to catch up with his blizzard. He controlled the speed and kept a certain distance from the Rui sisters. He led them out of Ice Orchid City and ran into the wild. Ru Yi and Ru Meng followed Nian Bing. They were also secretly scheming. There were very few magicians on the continent. They knew this very well. Because of this, they had no experience in fighting with magicians, let alone being confident. Ru Meng was anxious. Just as he was at a loss for what to do, he suddenly heard Rui say in a low voice, "Graft." Green fighting aura emanated from Ru Yi's body. She suddenly leaped into the air. Hearing her sister's words, Ru Meng immediately understood. She placed the long sword in her hand into her mouth and similarly erupted with green fighting aura. She pushed Rui's feet up with both her palms and sent her sister flying. In that instant, her Do Qi, which came from the same source as Rui's, was completely transferred into Rui's body. Rui's Do Qi immediately shone brightly and traversed 10 feet in the air. She caught up to Nian Bing and locked her Do Qi onto Nian Bing. She held her sword with both hands. He slashed with all his might. The green Do Qi formed a dazzling green arc of light in the air, and it slashed toward Nian Bing with a twisted light. Feeling the dangerous Do Qi, Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. She almost couldn't withstand the impact of the previous dart, let alone this slash with all her strength. The protection scroll was instantly activated. The ice wall spell condensed a foot-thick ice to block the Do Qi slash. Combined with Ru Yi and Ru Meng's Do Qi, the power of this attack was terrifying. The meter-thick ice cracked under the extremely sharp Do Qi slash. The green light penetrated the ice wall. Although it was weakened a lot, it still slashed towards Nian Bing's direction. Nian Bing chose to use the ice wall spell not to block the opponent, but to cut off the Do Qi that locked onto her and to slow down the opponent's attack. When the green light slashed his previous position, he had already flown out with the help of the blizzard. Ru Yi's Do Qi was exhausted and fell to the ground. Ru Meng caught up with her sister, and the two stopped at the same time. The magic displayed made their hearts tighten. Nian Bing floated 10 feet away from the two girls. The blizzard was not over, but under the effect of his powerful spiritual power, it was constantly compressed. This kind of mutated snowstorm, even the sorcerer back then was fearful of it. It was naturally the best choice to use it as a shield. The two ladies are using wind attribute Do Qi, Nian Bing said indifferently. Ru Yi took a step forward and stared firmly at Nian Bing. "Who are you?" Nian Bing said, "You can call me the Demon Killer." Ru Yi said coldly, "So, you heard our previous conversation?" Nian Bing smiled indifferently. "I don't care which country you are spies from, but I have to care if you treat people's lives like grass. Miss Ru Yi, the man you dealt with before is the target of my protection. For the sake of Miss Ru Meng's kindness, I don't want to make things difficult for you. You can go, but I hope that Miss Ru Yi will be more cautious in the future. Those who kill will be killed." Ru Yi looked at her sister. "Meng Yu?" Ru Meng did not dare to look at her sister's eyes, and could not help but lower her head. Ru Yi looked coldly at Nian Bing. "Magicians have no advantage when facing warriors. You don't want to make things difficult for us, but I want to make things difficult for you. If you have the ability, don't run." The greatest feature of Wind Attribute Do Qi was that it increased the user's attack speed. After a few flashes, Ru Yi had already arrived in front of Nian Bing. Nian Bing did not retreat. With a cold snort, the blizzard condensed to a diameter of 1 foot instantly exploded. The power of the compressed blizzard was no less than that of a 6th-grade spell. Ru Yi only felt that she had encountered a huge wall. Countless spinning ice blades seemed to want to cut her body. The Do Qi that protected her body was torn to pieces by the crazy spinning ice blades. At the moment of the blizzard's explosion, her body that was charging forward was suddenly blown away. Countless tears appeared on her clothes and traces of blood could be seen, revealing her white skin. Blood spurted out. Under the effect of the blizzard, Ru-Yi was immediately seriously injured. Indeed, in a one-on-one situation, a magician was definitely at a disadvantage. However, this only applied to magicians who did not have the time to recite spells. If a warrior was faced with an opponent who had already prepared magic, then the chance of winning was very small. Sister. Ru-Meng caught Ru-Yi's body. Ru-Yi's body was very cold. The cold poison of the blizzard had invaded her meridians. For Ru-Yi, who wanted to kill her, Nian Bing did not have the slightest mercy. Fortunately, Ru-Yi's do-chi was not weak, so she was not completely torn apart by the blizzard. Great ice element. Condense, become the ice of the ancient cold river, become the ice of the solid moonlight. The fusion of ice, appear, the two-color ice ball. While Ru-Meng was taking care of her sister, Nian Bing recited another spell. A huge two-color ice ball appeared in front of him. For a warrior, he did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. At this time, Ru-Yi was already on the verge of death. Blood kept flowing out of her mouth. Her most serious injury was not the wound in front of her body. It was the cold air that shook into her body when the blizzard broke out. At this time, the blood in her body was constantly coagulating. When her heart and meridians froze, it would be the moment of her death. The idea of being protective of the fairer sex never appeared in Nian Bing's mind. He only knew that his own life was the most precious. What did you do to my sister? I'll fight with you. Ru-Meng put down Ru-Yi's body and rushed toward Nian Bing with her sword. Dozens of wind elemental do-aura slashes shot out from the sword. Nian Bing was surprised to find that Ru-Meng's do-aura seemed to be purer than her sister's. However, the dual-colored ice sphere had already been formed. This was a 6th-tier spell, and it was definitely not something that the 4th-tier low-grade ice wall spell from before could compare to. The dual-colored ice sphere kept changing its position under Nian Bing's control. Apart from leaving some traces on the ice ball, Ru-Meng's attack could not pose any threat to Nian Bing at all. For Ru-Meng, Nian Bing still had some good feelings. At least, her heart was much kinder than Ru-Yi's. Miss Ru-Meng, if you don't want your sister to die, then stop. Blocking Ru-Meng's attack again, the two-color ice ball shone with cold light. In the piercing cold, dozens of ice cones shot out, immediately forcing Ru-Meng to retreat. Ru-Meng gasped for breath as she looked at the powerful mage in front of her. You killed my sister, and you're still making sarcastic remarks? Nian Bing said indifferently. Your sister was only injured by the shock. What was fatal was the invasion of the cold current. Now, only I can bring her back to life. You should understand. It's easy for me to kill you. There's no need to lie to you. The biggest feature of the two-color ice ball was its lethality. If the enemy was a group, it could continuously send out ice cones with tyrannical attack power, until it exploded. After this 6th-grade magic was formed, unless the opponent had the strength of a great swordsman or above, it was impossible to break the two-color ice ball. In Nian Bing's calm voice, Ru-Meng calmed down. Indeed, if the other party wanted to kill her, it would be enough to attack her with the previous magic. That was simply unstoppable. Then are you willing to save my sister? I beg you, save my sister. I'll save her as a relative. My sister's nature is not bad. It's only because she was too stimulated in the past that she hates men. The two-color ice ball disappeared. Nian Bing walked step by step towards Rui. He was very clear that Rui's life was now in his hands. Ru-Meng would never attack him again. I also don't want to kill people. It's just that, with your sister's temperament, she should be taught a lesson. Please take off her clothes. What do you want to do? Hearing this, Ru-Meng was shocked. She stood in front of Nian Bing and looked at him vigilantly. The sword in her hand was raised again. Looking at the skull mask on Nian Bing's face, she couldn't help but feel a strong fear in her heart. All along, she had listened to her sister's arrangements, and had long developed a dependence. Rui took care of her in every possible way. At this time, Rui had fallen into a coma and there was a powerful enemy in front of her that she couldn't fight against. She really didn't know what to do. Nian Bing frowned and said, "Miss Ru Meng, your sister has a lot of wounds on her body. If you don't take off her clothes, how can I treat her? Don't worry, I have no interest in her body at all." He had seen many beautiful women, and any one of them was not something that Rui's beauty could compare to. Especially when compared to Feng Nu's beauty, Rui was just the light of a firefly. Hearing Nian Bing's words, Ru Meng came to her senses and hurriedly dodged to block Nian Bing's path. She squatted down and supported Rui to lean on her body. You are really willing to save my sister?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "Of course, I have no enmity with you. However, I hope that after your sister comes back to life, you will persuade her to not have the heart to disregard human life. Otherwise, the next time we meet, the word kill will fall on her head. Take off your clothes." As he said that, Nian Bing raised the Zhengyang saber in his left hand and pointed the stone of fire god at the hilt towards Rui's forehead. What other thing could be more effective than the stone of fire god to remove the cold poison? Under the effect of the fire element, the scorching hot air flowed down from between her eyebrows and Rui's originally pale face suddenly became a little rosy. Seeing that Nian Bing really wanted to save her sister, Ru Meng immediately let out a sigh of relief and put down the long sword. With trembling hands, she took off her sister's clothes. After the outer long skirt was taken off, it was the inner garment, and after the inner garment was the undergarment. It was extremely troublesome, and Nian Bing was dumbstruck as he muttered, "Girls are really troublesome. Miss Ru Meng, you'd better move quickly. Otherwise, the cold poison did not take her life, but she will die from excessive blood loss. I will have no other way." Hearing this, Ru Meng's hands stopped trembling and quickly removed the obstacles on her sister's body. When everything was removed, Nian Bing suddenly became sluggish for a moment. He had to admit that Miss Rui, who had the strength of a sword master, had a perfect figure. This was the first time he saw a girl's body, and he could not help but feel a little thirsty. Fortunately, he was wearing a mask on his face. Otherwise, Ru Meng would see his flushed face and he did not know what to think. Taking a deep breath, Nian Bing forced himself to calm down and put the undulating peaks in front of him to the back of his mind. He swallowed his saliva and pressed his hands on Rui's delicate body, chanting the spell he was familiar with. After months of learning in the Magician's Guild, he was no longer the Nian Bing who was not familiar with ice spells. "Great ice element, I beg you, melt your kind heart into water and turn it into a holy spring to heal the wounds. Under the witness of the goddess of water, appear, the source of healing, holy water spell." With the completion of the spell, a soft blue light condensed on Nian Bing's hands. In an instant, his hands turned completely white like jade. His hands trembled like waves and pressed on the air. A white halo floated around Rui's fair and plump body. Under the effect of the white light, the dozens of wounds of different depths stopped bleeding immediately. Nian Bing closed his eyes and let the gentle water element flow on his fingertip. When he felt that the holy water spell was completely formed, his hands moved. His hands touched the wounds on Rui's body. The milky white light replaced the bright red of the wounds and the viscous holy water completely sealed the ghastly wounds. Soon, the milky white liquid completely merged into the wound. One could almost see with the naked eye that the wounds of different depths were constantly healing. After taking a deep breath, Nian Bing felt a little tired. After all, he had used a few powerful spells consecutively and had used up a lot of his mana. That's enough. Help your sister put on her clothes. Don't touch her body for now. Let the holy water completely fuse with the wound. You can bring her back in about an hour. Rest assured, the holy water spell I used is a healing spell of the 5th step. It was originally used to treat internal injuries. For this kind of ordinary external injuries, The holy water spell is extravagant, but it won't leave a scar. Let her have a good sleep. When she wakes up tomorrow, everything will be fine." Hearing that there wouldn't even be a scar left, Ru Meng's eyes immediately showed a grateful look. At this time, she completely believed that Nian Bing didn't mean to hurt them. "Mr. Demon Killer Envoy, thank you. I thank you on behalf of my sister. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay you." Nian Bing said with some amusement, "What is there to thank me for? Don't forget, I was the one who injured your sister. I hope she can learn her lesson. Miss Ru Meng, what kind of stimulation did your sister suffer before?" Ru Meng hesitated for a moment. However, when she saw Nian Bing's clear gaze through the mask, a strong sense of trust surged in her heart. She sighed softly and said, "It's like this. Our parents died because of the plague when my sister was 7 years old and I was 5 years old. When she was young, my sister was very strong. In order to take care of me, she begged on the street every day. At that time, she was like a boy. The little beggars of the same age around us didn't dare to bully us. My sister has always been very fierce to outsiders. Until my sister was 10 years old, we were taken in by our benefactor. Our benefactor took care of our food and clothing and taught us skills. This gave us the opportunity to stand out. Mr. Demon Killer Envoy, please don't ask us which side we belong to. Even if we die, my sister and I will never betray our benefactor." Nian Bing smiled and said, "I'm not interested in that. I just want to know what kind of stimulation your sister suffered that made her become so hysterical." Ru Meng's eyes revealed a trace of tears. Among the orphans taken in by our benefactor, there was a very outstanding boy. He was very handsome. Moreover, his temperament was gentle. His ability was obvious to all. At the age of 20, he had already reached the realm of Great Swords Master. At that time, we once said that one day, he would definitely become a generation of swordsmen. At that time, I was 15 years old and my sister was 17 years old. I don't know when, but my sister had already secretly fallen in love with him, but she never dared to confess, burying her love in her heart. Because my sister knew that he liked the benefactor's daughter. Although the benefactor's daughter only came back once a year, but at that time, he was always the happiest. My sister knew that she couldn't compare with the benefactor's daughter, so she could only bury her feelings in her heart. Finally, 2 years ago, the benefactor's daughter came back home again. Being outstanding, he couldn't bear it anymore and confessed to the benefactor's daughter. However, what he received was rejection, a ruthless rejection, a rejection without any room for negotiation. At that time, he was greatly stimulated and ran out to drink alone. As the saying goes, caring makes one confused. My sister chased after him. That night they didn't come back. Although my sister didn't say anything, I guessed that something had happened between them. Since then, my sister and the benefactor's relationship was established. I was very happy for my sister, but I always had a feeling that something was wrong. That year was the happiest year of my sister's life. They lived together and flew together while carrying out missions. My sister didn't forget to take care of me and didn't care about anything else. Seeing my sister so happy, I didn't have the heart to say anything. I just secretly prayed, hoping that my guess was wrong. However, things didn't go as I wished. After they dated for a whole year, when the benefactor's daughter came back home again, the outstanding man was just like before, caring for the benefactor's daughter in every possible way. Nothing had changed. The benefactor's daughter still didn't pay attention to him. After the benefactor's daughter left, my sister and the benefactor's daughter quarreled for the first time. I clearly remember that they quarreled very fiercely at that time. I was worried about my sister, so I kept listening under their window. My sister asked him why he still couldn't forget the benefactor's daughter. He heartlessly hurt my sister. He said to my sister that the relationship between him and my sister was just a substitute for the benefactor's daughter. She was just a sustenance for his feelings. He also said that in this life, he would only love the benefactor's daughter. Even if he really married my sister in the future, he would only love the benefactor's daughter. My sister was a strong person. From that moment on, her heart died. She didn't say anything because he was the benefactor's person. My sister's killing intent had already dissipated. However, my sister asked the benefactor for a transfer and came here. Using the identity of a prostitute to cover herself, she continued to work for the benefactor. I think, if it wasn't to repay the benefactor, I'm afraid my sister would have already thought of committing suicide. I saw her crying in the middle of the night more than once. My sister was really suffering. Tonight, the friend you protected came to the brothel. He was really handsome, even more handsome than the person my sister once loved. His gentle smile was somewhat similar to that person's, so my sister's heart twitched and she wanted to kill him. Mr. Masha Envoy, I apologize to you and your friend on behalf of my sister. Please forgive my sister for her pitiful experience. In the future, I will definitely persuade her not to do stupid things again. After listening to Ru Meng's narration, Nian Bing's heart trembled slightly. Everyone had their own experience. If compared with Rui and Rui, perhaps she was luckier. Her eyes fell on Rui's still pale face. She didn't seem to be so hateful anymore. The trace of resentment in her heart completely disappeared. Nian Bing sighed and said, I'm sorry, Miss Ru Meng. I didn't know your sister had experienced so many hardships. I should apologize to her and sincerely wish her the best. I hope she can find a good home in the future. However, please tell your sister that all handsome men are not necessarily bad people. At least, my friend isn't. Well, take your sister back, I will escort you. Be careful in the future. Ru Meng carefully picked up her sister and returned to the city under the escort of Nian Bing. After sending them back to the brothel, Nian Bing quietly left. At this time, the sky in the distance had already revealed a touch of white. Not in a hurry to return to the restaurant, Nian Bing found a quiet corner, put away his Masha Envoy outfit, sat cross-legged, and released his spirit to perceive everything around him. At the same time, he slowly restored his magical power. Although the recovery speed was slower, but because of the release of his spirit, he could perceive what was going on around him in advance, so it was relatively safer. When Nian Bing sensed that the streets were already bustling with activity, he suddenly realized that something was amiss. Waking up from meditation, the special nature of ice and fire made his magical power recover very quickly. At this time, he had reached the best state again. Standing up, he patted the dust off his body. Now it was time to go back. He believed that Rui should have also woken up, but he didn't know how her body was. After the first time using magic to hurt people, Nian Bing felt a little guilty. He was very sympathetic to Rui's experience. After all, he also had a similar experience. When they reached the main street, Nian Bing identified the direction and walked towards the hotel. He wasn't in a hurry. He had already digested most of the food he had eaten last night. He wanted to find a place to fill his stomach first. He would let Xue Jing wait. The worse her impression of him was, the more likely she would stop pestering him. Thinking of this, he simply slowed down his pace. There were quite a few places to buy breakfast. However, Nian Bing could tell from a few glances that the chefs in these breakfast shops were not very good at cooking. However, he had no choice but to make do with it for now. He casually found a relatively clean breakfast shop and sat down. He ordered a bowl of porridge, 2 steamed buns and a plate of salted vegetables. These basic food, the taste should not be too bad. While eating the food he ordered, Nian Bing looked at the street. He suddenly found that across the street from this breakfast shop, there was a shop selling kitchenware. His heart was moved. He secretly thought that now that he had the space ring, he did not need to carry anything with him. Since that was the case, why not buy some kitchenware and put it in the space ring? After all, just a kitchen knife was not enough. Besides barbecuing, there was no way to effectively cook. Yes, buy some kitchenware. and buy some seasonings. This way it would be more convenient to carry them with him. Thinking of this, he sped up the movement of his mouth. After filling his stomach, he immediately crossed the street and walked into the kitchenware shop. The kitchenware shop looked very clean. On both sides of the wall, there were all kinds of kitchenware hanging. Although it wasn't a high grade, it was enough for ordinary cooking. A short man in his 40s came up and said, "Sir, do you want to buy kitchenware? We have everything here, you can choose whatever you want." Nian Bing casually picked up an iron pot and tapped it with his finger, making a crisp sound. He looked at the texture of the iron pot and could not help but shake his head. The quality was too poor. He was afraid that if his fire magic was just a little stronger, this pot would be destroyed. The short man saw that Nian Bing was not satisfied and quickly said, "Sir, if these ordinary goods are not to your discerning eyes, I have better ones here." "Okay, let me see. It would be best if you have a full set, that way I can choose one by one." Nian Bing didn't have much hope. As long as the kitchen utensils were sturdy and resilient enough to withstand his ice and fire magic, it would be enough. The short man said, "What a coincidence, I have a set of authentic kitchenware from Sky Spring Pavilion. Please wait a moment." Sky Spring Pavilion? Nian Bing had heard ghost chef Cha Ji mention this name before. According to Cha Ji's description, Sky Spring Pavilion was one of the best kitchenware workshops in the world. The kitchenware they produced had high hardness, good rigidity, resistance to abrasion and corrosion, and other characteristics. Although they were not famous, they were still good kitchenware that was hard to come by. Most good chefs would use the kitchenware they produced there. Because Sky Spring Pavilion was extremely famous, the price of the kitchenware they produced was rather outrageous. Any one of them would cost a few gold coins, and the whole set would probably cost a few purple gold coins. Ordinary kitchenware only cost 2 or 3 silver coins to buy a set. The difference in price was 100 times. However, Nian Bing did not care about money. If the boss here could really take out the good things produced by Sky Spring Pavilion, he would not be stingy. As the saying goes, in order to do a good job, one must first sharpen the tools. For a chef, the better the tools, the more he could display his full ability when cooking. After a while, the short man came out with a pile of boxes that were taller than him. It looked like he was struggling. He placed the boxes on the ground and said while panting, "Sir, take a look. These are all good things produced by Sky Spring Pavilion. Although the price is a little higher, it is definitely worth the money." Nian Bing walked forward curiously and opened the box at the top. There was an iron pot inside, and the pot was completely gray. He turned the pot around and saw a diamond-shaped mark engraved on the bottom of the pot. The words Sky Spring Pavilion were engraved on it. This wok was obviously much heavier than the previous one. It was at least 4 times heavier than the previous one. The thickness of the wok was also more suitable. When Nian Bing held the handle, his wrist and the handle became one. It felt very comfortable. Nian Bing's wrist trembled slightly as he did the action of holding the wok. Everything was very natural and harmonious. This kind of heavy wok was exactly what Nian Bing liked. He tapped the body of the wok lightly. The quality of the metal was quite good. When he tapped the body of the wok, there was a deep and resounding echo. It was very comfortable to listen to. "Boss, is this kitchenware produced by Sky Spring Pavilion?" The boss was stunned for a moment and said, "Of course it is. This is the treasure that I specially bought from Sky Spring Pavilion. If not for the fact that you know how to make kitchenware, I would not take it out." Chapter 45. Nian Bing looked at him and said, "How much is this pot?" The boss probed. "This pot should be sold for a gold coin, but since you seem to be interested, I'll give you half price, 5 silver coins. Isn't that cheap?" Nian Bing put the iron pot back into the box and said calmly, "Then you should keep this treasure of the store." After he finished speaking, he walked out without looking back. "Ah, Mister, don't go. The price is negotiable, just name a price." The boss hurriedly called out to Nian Bing. Nian Bing turned around and looked at him. If you want a full set of tableware, I'll pay a gold coin. If you want to sell it, then sell it. If you don't want to sell it, then forget it. This is clearly a fake. It's not from Sky Spring Pavilion. The boss was dumbfounded. Mister, you can't say things like that. How do you know that this is a fake? Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, the material is a product of Sky Spring Pavilion. The color is a bit darker than this, and it's also a bit heavier. Also, the mark is slightly different. Sky Spring Pavilion's mark should be a triangle. For your full set of tableware, a gold coin is already a very high price. If I'm not wrong, you must have bought it from somewhere at a low price. The boss said with a bitter face, Mister, even if it's a fake, there are so many of them. 1 gold coin is too little. Nian Bing snorted. You think it's too little? Then you'll have to find another buyer. For this kind of fake, I'll pay at most 8 silver coins elsewhere. After saying that, she pretended to leave. Okay. Fang Jing, you're also the first customer today. I'll sell it to you for 1 gold coin. Sigh, I'm losing money. The boss reluctantly made a concession. Nian Bing took out a gold coin and handed it to the boss. She picked up a pile of kitchen utensils and left the shop, watching his back as he left. The short boss snorted and muttered to himself, what an idiot. Even though he knew it was a fake, he still bought it. I only bought it for 3 silver coins. Now I've made a lot of money. Ha 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 ha. One had to know that 1 gold coin was enough for a family of 3 to live for half a month. After leaving the store, Nian Bing was also rejoicing. What an idiot. It was clearly the real thing, but he sold it as a fake. He had made a huge profit this time. The kitchen utensils of the Sky Spring Pavilion were not fake. The reason why he dared to bargain with the shop owner was because he knew that the shop owner was the owner of the shop. It was mainly because of the boss's offer. In the Heaven Spring Pavilion, even the purchase price would not be lower than 1 gold coin, but the owner wanted to sell a pot to him for 5 silver coins. Thinking about how Binglan City was a commercial city, he easily deduced that the Sky Spring Pavilion's kitchen utensils must have been bought from someone who didn't know how to cook. Sky Spring Pavilion was located in the Huarong Empire, and it was hard for ordinary people to see their products. Nian Bing knew that the owner didn't know what was good for him, so she naturally lowered the price. After finding a place where no one was around, Nian Bing inspected every piece of kitchen utensils and put them into her space ring. This time, even if they had to sleep in the wild again, he wouldn't have to worry about not having the tools to cook. On the way back to the hotel, he bought all kinds of spices and seasonings that he needed. Inside the space ring, other than his precious knives, was simply a mobile kitchen. Silence. Are you awake? When Nian Bing returned to the hotel, it was already daytime, so naturally there were no security guards to stop him. He directly went to his room upstairs. When the door opened, Xuejing appeared in front of Nian Bing with a dissatisfied face. Where did you go last night? Nian Bing smiled and said, I was sleeping on the sofa in the lobby. Xuejing snorted and said, You're still lying. When I came back last night, I brought a blanket for you, but you disappeared. Where did you go? As she said that, she pulled Nian Bing into the room. Hearing Xuejing's words, Nian Bing's heart couldn't help but feel warm. But when he thought of his freedom in the future, he hardened his heart and said, I just found a place to stay for the night. Xuejing frowned and said, It's so late, how can there be a place to stay? Hurry up and confess, where did you go? Anxious to ask Nian Bing where he went last night, she didn't even close the door. Brothel, is that okay? Don't you think you're annoying? Nian Bing pretended to be impatient. What? Xuejing's voice suddenly became sharp. You say it again, where did you go? Brothel. What's wrong? It's more comfortable to sleep there. Nian Bing put on an indifferent expression. Xuejing's originally rosy face suddenly became a little pale. She raised her hand and pointed at Nian Bing. You actually went to that kind of place, Nian Bing said indifferently. It's my freedom to go wherever I want. Although we're friends, but you don't have the right to restrict my freedom. I'm also a man, isn't it normal to go to a brothel? Xuejing's voice trembled. Good Nian Bing, I came all the way here to chase you and you actually treat me like this? Nian Bing blinked his eyes. It's not as exaggerated as Qianli, right? Silence, I said, this is my own matter. I treat you as a friend, so I told you the truth. Anger made Xuejing's pale face turn red. Last night I asked you to stay with me, but you made all sorts of excuses. But you went to a brothel, why? You tell me why. Nian Bing walked to the side and sat down. At this time, he was also a little nervous. He didn't know if he should continue, so he took a deep breath and said, It's very simple, we're friends, and prostitutes don't need to take responsibility. You. With a whoosh, the sword was unsheathed. Xuejing pointed at Nian Bing. In your eyes, I'm not even as good as a prostitute? Nian Bing shook his head and said, No, silence, you have to understand that there's no other relationship between us besides being friends. I don't feel that I did anything wrong. This is the second time you've pointed a sword at me. I also want to ask you a question. What right do you have to interfere with my freedom? I've never said that I'm a gentleman, nor did I force you to walk with me. If you're not satisfied, you can leave at any time. I think Uncle Shui is looking forward to your return. I'll kill you. Xuejing had already lost her reason in her rage. Nian Bing originally wanted to take advantage of her fiery temper, but he didn't know why, but now he felt somewhat unbearable in his heart. The sword, with a red light of Do Qi, directly pierced Nian Bing's chest. Xuejing, who was in a rage, had long since lost her misgivings. Just as Nian Bing was about to activate the ice wall scroll, a blue ray of light blocked in front of him without any warning. There was a soft ding sound. Xuejing's sword unexpectedly flew away and stabbed into the wall at the side. With a flash of blue light, a long sword was placed on her shoulder. The qi completely locked Xuejing, making her unable to move an inch. Nian Bing looked at the person in front of him in surprise. President Carlo. The person who came was Carlo. His gaze fell on Xuejing. He calmly said, Fire attribute Do Qi, drifting erratically like clouds, but when it erupts it's like toppling mountains and overturning seas. This should be Fire Cloud Do Qi. What's your relationship with blood-devouring soul extinguishing snow martial snow? Nian Bing's breath stimulated Xuejing's body. He glared at Carlo in front of him. It's none of your business. Get lost, I'm going to kill him. Carlo somewhat pondered and looked at Nian Bing. Noisy is noisy, why do you have to fight? Are you willing to kill him? If it's just a misunderstanding, just make it clear. Little girl, emotional matters can't be solved by impulse. He, who was experienced in accidents, had already read a lot of things from Xuejing's love-hate eyes. Xuejing stared blankly for a moment and angrily said, Get lost, what misunderstanding? He himself admitted to going to the brothel. Is this still a misunderstanding? Let me go, I'm going to kill him. Nian Bing stood up, walked to Carlo's side and said, Silence, calm down. I have my own life, you also have your own life, we don't belong to the same world. If what I did made you angry, then I'm willing to apologize to you, but I will never change anything because of you, and at the same time, I don't want you to change because of me. President Carlo, let her go. The sword light in Carlo's hand disappeared, and the breath that locked onto Xuejing's body disappeared. Nian Bing walked to the side, pulled the sword from the wall, and handed it to Xuejing. I have a protection scroll on me, you can't hurt me. I'm sorry, Jingjing. Perhaps I've disappointed you, but this is my nature. Rather than letting you know me in the future, it's better to make it clear now. Taking the sword from Nian Bing, Xuejing's hand was slightly trembling. Why do you all treat me like this? What's wrong with me? Am I not good enough for you? As soon as I heard the news of you leaving, I immediately chased after you. I was more willing to accompany you to the Ottoman Empire. But what about you? What did you do? Are you worthy of my heart? Nian Bing was silent, and secretly said in his heart, I'm sorry, Silence, I don't want to reject you, but I don't have the qualifications to accept your love now. There is only hatred in my heart, for the revenge of my parents. I can't let anything distract me. Silence, you will definitely find a better home than me. I will always bless you. In Yen Bing's heart, the woman with the highest position was undoubtedly Feng Nu, maybe because Feng Nu was the first girl he saw, or maybe because Feng Nu was the most beautiful girl among all. In his heart, Feng Nu's position was almost unshakable. Even so, Nian Bing did not express anything to Feng Nu, because he knew that he did not have the qualifications. Before he avenged his parents, he did not have the qualifications to find his own love. Everything had to wait until after he took revenge, but even he did not know how long that would take, so he did not want to hurt any girl, so he could only choose to escape and withdraw, and work hard to improve his own strength. That was what he pursued. Seeing that Nian Bing did not speak, Xue Jing's anger in her heart increased, and the combat energy on her sword loomed, but she, who had always done things according to her own preferences, could not stab out, no matter how hard she tried. It was not because of the unfathomable Carlo beside her, nor was it because of the magic scroll hidden by Nian Bing. Looking at the handsome man in front of her, although she was angry in her heart, she did not know why, but an indescribable feeling made her unable to make up her mind to hurt him. Tears rolled down her face. Xue Jing fiercely threw the sword to the ground, and let the tears flow, turning into a red cloud and floating away. The person who had always wanted to get rid of was gone, but Nian Bing's heart was even heavier. Silence, have a safe journey, and return to Ice City as soon as possible. That is the place where you belong. Carlo took 2 steps forward, picked up the sword on the ground, and looked at it carefully, then said, Not a bad sword, fire attribute. The sword itself was made with crimson steel, using the 100 refinements method. Using this sword can make the fire attribute combat energy better, a rare weapon. Mr. Magician, don't you think it's a pity? Nian Bing sighed, took the sword in her hand and said, It has already happened, there is no pity. The sword is a good sword, but I'm not a good person. Call me Nian Bing. Carlos smiled slightly and said, This girl's appearance is not bad, I can see. Although her temper is a bit fiery. But her nature is still very good. Why do you have to be thousands of miles away from her? Am I? You also heard it, she lost her temper because I went to the brothel last night. I am sorry for her, her choice to leave is the most correct. How can a person like me be worthy of her love? Carlo's smile was even wider. This thing is a few decades older than you, and has some attainments in the art of observing people. Although you look very gentle on the surface, there is a kind of pride in your bones that others don't have. People can't be proud, but they must have a lofty character. I don't think a person like you will go to the brothel to do meaningless things, am I right? If my guess is correct, you seem to be because you don't want to implicate that girl, so you forced her to leave. Old fox, this was Nian Bing's evaluation of Carlo. These are my private affairs. President Carlo doesn't need to ask more. You came to find me, presumably you have already prepared those things, right? Carlo smiled slightly and said, Of course, I don't know if Mr. Nian Bing is ready? Bring it in. At his call, a tall and sturdy man walked in from outside, carrying a cloth bag on his shoulder. Without opening it, Nian Bing could already feel the magic aura in that cloth bag. The things you want are already here. Nian Bing nodded, glanced at the cloth bag on the table, waved her right hand, and suddenly, 7 magic scrolls appeared in her hand. These magic scrolls were completely made of the highest grade white scrolls. President, you can take a look, but don't accidentally touch it. I'll tell you what kind of magic these scrolls represent later. Seeing that Nian Bing didn't look at the cloth bag he brought, Carlo smiled and said, Since you trust me, why wouldn't I trust you? Mr. Nian Bing, I am very happy to have completed our first transaction. In the future, if you still have magic items to sell, I welcome you at any time, price is not an issue. Nian Bing nodded and said, "In that case, I won't see you out, President." Right now, she just wanted to be alone. Carlos said, "Mr. Nian Bing, yesterday I heard you say that you still have several special magic scrolls you want to sell. I don't know what effect these magic scrolls have. If possible, I will certainly give a very reasonable price. Of course, this will depend on the quality of the magic scrolls." Nian Bing shook her head and said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to sell those magic scrolls. Maybe there will be an opportunity in the future. You also know that I don't lack money, I just need some raw materials for magic items." Carlo didn't say anything more, smiled and said, "I hope our guild can cooperate happily with your master. After leaving here, I will immediately rush to Ice Snow City." Nian Bing's heart moved and said, "President Carlo, if you meet that girl on the way to Ice Snow City, I will trouble you to help me take care of her. In the future, Nian Bing will repay you." Carlo nodded. He could see that Nian Bing was in a bad mood, so he didn't say anything more and left the room with his men. Xue Jing left, she also got the magic scrolls she wanted. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, but Nian Bing's heart was somewhat blocked. She opened the cloth bag and showed the magic scrolls in front of her. What should she do when she was in a bad mood? Naturally, it was best to have some things to resolve. At present, making magic scrolls was the best choice. Only by turning each and every one of those blank scrolls into something they needed could they better survive on this continent. Nian Bing once again made magic scrolls. He had high expectations for himself. A single magic scroll was no longer what he pursued. Although the highest level he could make was still grade 6, this time, he integrated many of his own ideas into the various magic scrolls. 3 days. For 3 whole days, Nian Bing didn't take a step out of her room. Every day, she asked the hotel staff to send her food and drink to her room. On the first day, she was still a little depressed, but from the second day onwards, she forgot all her worries and completely devoted herself to making magic scrolls. The more complex the magic scroll, the more difficult it was to make it. At the same time, the success rate would also be lower. Even with his profound magic control and some magic scrolls with special effects, he would not be able to use them. The success rate was less than 1/3. 3 days had passed. Nian Bing looked at the more than 20 magic scrolls that were successfully completed in front of her. A faint smile appeared on her pale face. Although only about 20 magic scrolls were made out of the many white magic scrolls, she firmly believed that any one of the finished products in front of her would be comparable to the price of all the previous white magic scrolls. She carefully put these scrolls into the space ring, took out a few more, and wore them on her body. She was done. The things she needed had been completed. It was time to set off. The Ottoman Empire was her destination. Before she went to the Ottoman Empire, there was one more thing she had to do, and that was to pursue her other dream. It could also be said that she was pursuing it on behalf of her master, Cha Ji. The famous snack in Ice Orchid City was the last place she would stop at before she left. After paying the bill, Nian Bing quietly left the Longxin Hotel. When she passed by the Longxin restaurant, she clearly saw that there were a few more types of chicken wings on the signboard. They were completely transformed from the chicken wings she made that day. Although she could imagine that these chicken wings made by ordinary chefs would definitely not be as good as her own, but compared to the original, it was obviously much better. This could be considered as her contribution to this city. Hopefully, the food wouldn't disappoint her. While thinking, Nian Bing walked along the street towards the south of the city. The streets were still as noisy and lively as before. Various caravans could be seen everywhere. Carriages carrying goods would often block the streets and block the traffic. Every time this happened, there would be officials from Ice Orchid City to help improve the traffic situation. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. This commercial city was still running smoothly. Nian Bing looked at everything around him and secretly told himself that the next time he entered the Ice Moon Empire through Ice Orchid City, it would probably be the time he went to the Ice God Tower to avenge his parents. With a slight smile, Nian Bing walked forward. He didn't know how long he would have to walk. After confirming the direction, he knew that there would be an end to the south of the city. When Nian Bing arrived at the south of the city, his breathing was already a little uneven. He really wanted to yell, "I hate big cities. Why do I have to walk so far?" He asked a passerby for the exact location of the stair restaurant. Only then did he find his way to his destination. The decoration of the restaurant was much better than that of the Longxin restaurant. However, this seemed to be an open-air restaurant. There was a huge sign in the middle of the archway at the entrance. It was a big, oval-shaped eye that was about 1 square meter in size. It was extremely eye-catching hanging there. On both sides of the big eye, there were 2 big words, "Stare" and "Eye." What a unique feature! This was Nian Bing's first impression. When he walked through the door, this feeling became even stronger. It wasn't his first time seeing such a full meal. What appeared in front of him was a huge courtyard without a roof. The tables were very scattered. As long as there were customers, there would be a big pot on the table. No matter how many customers there would be a waiter at the table staring at them. The customers' gazes would all land on the pot. It was indeed the definition of stare. However, why were they doing this? "Sir, are you here to eat the food of the stair restaurant?" A waiter ran up. Nian Bing nodded and said, "It's my first time here. Can you give me an introduction first?" The waiter smiled and said, "Actually, it's very simple. We have special seasonings in this pot. After a long time of simmering, it becomes a stew. When you eat it, you can dilute it with boiling water. Then, you can put in liver, intestines, stomach, lungs, meat slices, tofu, vegetables, and some high-grade ingredient. The best is abalone. There is only 1 abalone in the pot. As long as you can pick it up, we will put in another one. Then, it will be heated by the stove below. The various ingredients in the pot will churn along with the boiling water. For every silver coin, you can use your chopsticks 10 times. You cannot stay in the boiling water. You can eat whatever you pick. If you're lucky, you'll naturally be able to eat good food. If you're unlucky, it's possible for you to eat vegetables 10 times in a row." Nian Bing looked at the waiter in surprise and said, "This is indeed very fresh. Then give me a pot. I'll try it." He came to an empty table and sat down. After a while, the waiter brought over a fire. Then, he put a big pot on the fire and heated it. The soup in the pot was brownish yellow, and waves of fragrance assailed their nostrils. Judging from the fragrance, Nian Bing was certain that there were medicinal ingredients in the base of the pot. Was medicinal cuisine popular in the Ice Moon Empire now? The soup in the pot gradually churned. Nian Bing picked up a sesame seed cake with his left hand. He picked up a pair of chopsticks with his right hand and carefully looked at the ingredients churning in the soup. There was a lot of soup, but relatively few ingredients. The temperature of the fire below was not low. No wonder they had to eat in the open air. If they ate in the house with so many fires, the problem of temperature alone would be very difficult to solve. It seemed that he really had to widen his eyes in order to eat. In terms of eyesight and accuracy, perhaps even a martial arts expert could not compare to Nian Bing. With a flip of his wrist, the chopsticks reached out and retracted like lightning. The only small abalone in the pot was picked up by him. Ignoring the waiter's surprised expression, Nian Bing blew off the heat on the abalone and put it into his mouth to chew. The taste was not as good as he had imagined, but it was still passable. Nian Bing immediately judged that the main reason why this dish could attract customers was because it was novel. In terms of taste, it could only be considered passable. The taste of the medicinal ingredients in the soup was not completely absorbed by the ingredient. Because it was cooked in advance and the control of the fire was not very good, the freshness of the abalone had been somewhat lost. When Nian Bing picked up the 8th abalone and put it into his mouth, the waiter's expression was extremely ugly. As expected of this dish, his eyes were already very wide open, but he still could not see how Nian Bing picked up the precious abalone among all the ingredients. It must be known that every time he put in an abalone, he would stir all the ingredients. Moreover, the abalone was very slippery in the soup. It was not easy to pick it up, let alone pick it up in an instant. Fortunately, Nian Bing picked up a piece of vegetable leaf and a piece of meat in the last 2 times. Otherwise, this dish would have become a feast of 10 abalones. After drinking a bowl of soup and eating the sesame seed cake, Nian Bing let out a satisfied breath and said to the waiter beside him, "The soup tastes better than the ingredients. This is originally a pretty good dish, but unfortunately, it is impossible to control the fire in this way. Naturally, it is a bit inferior. Let me give you a suggestion. It is best to add some ginger slices into the soup. Not only will it have the effect of dispelling the cold, but it will also taste better." After he finished speaking, he ignored the waiter's surprised gaze and put a silver coin on the table, got up and left. Even though Nian Bing wasn't too surprised by eating with his eyes, he was still enlightened by this new way of eating. After leaving the city, Nian Bing took a deep breath. Compared to the turbid air in the city, the wilderness was much fresher. The bright sun hung high in the sky, and it was already close to noon. After tasting this dish, he was in high spirit. His target was the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Let's go. Not far into the Ottoman Empire, Nian Bing suddenly felt an austere aura. The aura was very thick, and the surrounding trees seemed to be very quiet. It was as if even the chirping of insects and birds did not exist. Under what circumstances would such a feeling appear? His heart slightly tightened as he thought of the answer. An army. This kind of situation could only occur near where the army was stationed. Moreover, the army here must have gone through the test of iron and blood to be able to emit such a strong murderous aura. It seemed that the border between the Ottoman Empire and the Ice Moon Empire was not as peaceful as he had imagined. While he was thinking, the sound of horse hooves came from the front. As the sound of horse hooves became clearer, Nian Bing saw a cloud of dust rising from the road. The dust was very straight, and it was coming towards him. Was that a cavalry? Thinking of the word cavalry, Nian Bing could not help but recall the day more than 8 years ago. That was the first time he went to Ice Snow City with his master. The Silver Feather Knights had left a deep impression in his heart, especially the aunt that he treated as his mother. She was so kind, just like his mother. The dust was getting closer and closer, and Nian Bing saw that it was a group of cavalry. There were only 10 of them in total, and they were lined up neatly. They were all wearing black armor. Although they were not heavy armor, they still looked quite heavy. They were rushing towards him at high speed. The knights on the horses were in high spirits, and they did not wear helmets. The straight line of dust appeared from under the feet of their horses. The 10 of them were in a row, and the dust was not scattered at all. Even the posture of their horses was exactly the same. It was obvious that this was a group that had been trained for a long time. Nian Bing dodged to the side. He did not want these cavalry to misunderstand anything. Since the day he left Ice Snow City, he had told himself that he should avoid as much trouble as possible. The less trouble there was, the better he could achieve his goal. If you don't provoke others, will others not provoke you? Not necessarily. Stop! The leading knight suddenly shouted. The front hooves of the 10 horses were lifted up high at the same time, and they landed to the side. They were originally galloping at high speed, but they abruptly stopped not far away from Nian Bing. The leading knight had long red hair and was much taller than Nian Bing. Because of the sudden stop of the horses, the armor on his body made a clanking sound. He flipped off the horse and walked towards Nian Bing. "Little brother, how far are we from Ice Orchid City?" The knight's voice was still considered polite. Nian Bing said, "It's not far. Follow the main road. With your speed, you will arrive in about an hour." The knight looked at Nian Bing with a puzzled gaze. "Did you just come from there? Are you from the Ice Moon Empire?" Nian Bing shook his head. Of course, he could not confirm the knight's words. There was no blonde person in the Ice Moon Empire. No, I am from the Huarong Empire. If there is nothing else, I will continue on my way. Hearing the words Huarong Empire, the knight's expression changed. Huarong Empire? Then you don't have to go. Come back to Ice Orchid City with us. Nian Bing was slightly stunned and asked, why? The knight snorted and said, I am the captain of the Ice Moon Empire's Iron Blood Knights, Omu. Now that the Huarong Empire has suddenly allied with the Kairu Empire and launched an attack on the Ottoman Empire, we are returning to the Empire to pass on the news. At this time, you suddenly appeared at the border between our two empires, and you are from the Huarong Empire. You must come with us. If we find out that you have nothing to do with this, we will let you go. Nian Bing frowned and said, but I don't know about the war. From what you said, it seems that the war has not been going on for long. I am far away in the Ice Moon Empire, so how can I know? I am definitely not a spy like you think. Chapter 46. Is that so? No matter what, it's better to kill 1,000 by mistake than to let go of one. Come back to Ice Orchid City with us first. If we find out that you're not a spy, we won't make things difficult for you. Nian Bing said indifferently, go back with you? Let you put me under house arrest? I'm sorry, I have something to do and have to hurry. If you insist on taking me away, please take a look at this first. As she spoke, she raised her right hand and the badge of the Magician's Guild appeared in her palm. The knight saw the badge that Nian Bing took out and couldn't help but be stunned. Magician? You're a magician? Nian Bing said, to be precise, I'm a magician from the Ice Moon Empire's Magician's Guild. I think this badge can represent everything. The knight hesitated for a moment and shook his head. We've left the Empire for some time. Who knows where your badge came from? Please come with us and confirm the authenticity of your badge. Nian Bing's eyes were cold. So, you insist on taking me back to Ice Orchid City? A magician's dignity can't be blasphemed. I'm sorry, I can't go back with you. The knight laughed. Magician? You're just a magician from the Magician's Guild. Do you think your status is noble? Maybe in other empires, but in the Ice Moon Empire, your Magician's Guild is just a vassal. Unless you have the symbol of the Ice God Tower, even if your president is here, he still has to come with us. Hearing this, Nian Bing finally understood why Long Ji had compromised with her. The status of the Ice Moon Empire's Magician's Guild was so low. Even the squadron leader of a knight regiment looked down on them. How could those bigwigs have a good attitude towards the guild? In fact, it was also the knight's fault for not seeing clearly. If he had recognized that Nian Bing was holding an elder's badge, he would not have been so arrogant. An elder represented a sorcerer, and he was only a sword master. Wasn't he looking for death by challenging a sorcerer? Insulting a sorcerer is a shameful act. You will pay the price. For the first time, Nian Bing took out her morning dew dagger and Xingyang saber at the same time and held them upside down. Now, the two peerless divine blades were about to display their second effect. Therefore, they should be called the sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god. The knight snorted coldly. Although he was wearing armor, his speed was not slow at all. He directly grabbed Nianbing. A fist-sized fireball shot out from the fire god's roar. The fireball flashed as it met the knight's large hand. Instant casting a Tier 1 spell was nothing to Nianbing. To the knight, a Tier 1 spell could not break through his defense. However, was Nianbing's attack really that simple? The answer was no. When the fireball appeared, the sigh of the ice goddess in his right hand transformed into an icicle. Due to its special shape, the icicle was more suitable for flight. When the fireball came into contact with the knight's palm, it instantly collided with the fireball. Boom! A loud sound was accompanied by a mournful scream. The knight, who had thought that he would win, lost his right hand. Together with his armor, he was blasted into ashes. The baptism of ice and fire caused him to retreat a few steps and sit on the ground. His whole body was twitching non-stop. These days, Nian Bing had been in contact with warriors the most. He had been thinking, how could he compete with warriors who were good at close combat? Magic scrolls were obviously the best choice. However, scrolls were limited. If one day he lost the protection of a scroll, what would happen? Therefore, he began to study magic. From the day he left Ice City, he came up with a good idea, and that was to make full use of the same origin of ice and fire. The basis of the same origin of ice and fire was the balance of ice and fire. The two spells must have the same energy to produce an explosive effect. Nian Bing understood this point very well. Therefore, when he was casting the same origin of ice and fire, balancing the power of the two spells was the most troublesome thing for him. After separating from Kitty, Nian Bing suddenly thought of something. Did magic have to be pursued to a high level in order to be powerful? No, this was not absolute. Since he had the special ability of the same origin of ice and fire, if he could use this ability in a low-level spell, then the effect would be the same. From that day onwards, Nian Bing kept experimenting. Through his experiments, he found that it was much easier for low-level spells to produce the same origin of ice and fire than high-level spells. Especially now, when he used the sigh of the snow goddess and the roar of the fire god at the same time. He only needed to use a Tier 1 spell each, and they were in a state of balance. When these two Tier 1 spells collided, they could produce a power that was not inferior to a Tier 3 bursting flames. This kind of explosion might not be much to a martial arts expert, but it was more than enough to deal with a swordsman, especially when the opponent underestimated him. The most frightening thing was that after Nian Bing succeeded in his research, he began to study the characteristics of ice and fire that Long Zhi had mentioned. Just like when cooking food, the taste of the food itself had to be completely revealed. Similarly, the same origin of ice and fire magic also had to completely reveal the essence of ice and fire. Only then could it truly have the power of the same origin of ice and fire. Kitty's father, Hillard, had also given Nian Bing the same advice. Under his guidance, Nian Bing no longer pursued high-level spells, but developed small spells instead. Only by starting small, when the small spells had completely released the power of the same origin of ice and fire, would the high-level spells be able to explode with greater power. Therefore, these days, he rarely used the same origin of ice and fire magic to cultivate. Instead, he cultivated a single type of spell separately, fully understanding their characteristics. That day, Nian Bing's first sacrifice after his research was Rui. At that time, in order to conceal his identity, Nian Bing only used ice magic. If it was in the past, although his blizzard would still hurt Rui, it would definitely not be fatal. However, that day was different. The blizzard fully displayed the characteristics of ice. The powerful ice ability directly forced the cold poison into Rui's body, almost taking her life. And today, Nian Bing experimented with the first level of the same origin of ice and fire magic for the first time after he formed it. The explosive force blew up the knight's hand. In an instant, the two extreme energies of ice and fire simultaneously entered the knight's body under the control of Nian Bing's powerful spiritual power. Whether it was ice followed by fire or fire followed by ice, the feeling was definitely not pleasant. When two extreme energies fused together, it was much more terrifying than a single one. In fact, the body of the squadron leader was being infiltrated by the cold poison and the fire poison. Although only one of his hands was blown off, he had already lost the ability to continue fighting. From this blow, Nian Bing finally stepped into the door of the same origin of ice and fire magic. Seeing that their captain was injured, the remaining 9 knights rushed over at the same time. Although they did not have the strength of a swordsman, they were warriors of the Ice Moon Empire's Iron Blood Knight Regiment. They also had the ability of a senior warrior, especially their cooperation. After many years of training and life, they had already become one. 9 swords attacked Nian Bing at the same time. Although they had not yet reached the level of releasing fighting aura, 9 senior warriors attacking at the same time, coupled with the tacit understanding of the battle formation, even a great swordsman would not be able to do anything to them in a short period of time. It was a pity that these 9 high-level warriors didn't encounter a warrior. A battle between warriors could never be compared to a battle between magicians and warriors. The consumption of a tier 1 spell was very small for a great magician. At the same time, the biggest advantage of a spell that did not require chanting was that it could be released continuously. Dozens of fireballs flew out like a continuous barrage of cannons, amplified by the roar of the god of fire. The top-grade fire gemstone was not used to save Nianbing's magic, but it could make the magic more condensed and the attack more powerful. Just like how a Tier 1 fireball spell could not do anything to the swordsman squadron leader, they could not do anything to these senior warriors in front of him. However, when a Tier 1 fireball was followed by a large number of icicles, everything would become different. As the initiator, Nianbing clearly grasped the changes of each fireball and icicle. If it was someone who did not understand magic, perhaps they would think that a magician of the same origin of ice and fire magic was at most equivalent to an ice magician of the same level and a fire magician of the same level. But this was absolutely not correct. If an ice magician met a fire magician, what would happen if they used the same amount of magic to release a Tier 1 spell? It was very simple. The 2 spells would cancel each other out because of their respective extremes. The biggest characteristic of a magician of the same origin of ice and fire was that he could change this situation. Under the control of his spiritual power, he could fully feel the situation of the 2 spells he released. Now, what Nianbing wanted to do was to destroy. Dozens of loud noises brought up a lot of dust and smoke. The warhorses were frightened and ran to the side. It had to be admitted that these well-trained warhorses were of high quality. Although they were frightened, they still didn't run far. Unfortunately, their owners could no longer ride them. Blood and broken limbs outlined a tragic picture. None of the 9 senior fighters, the 9 fighters of the Iron Blood Knights, could see the sun of the next day. Nianbing closed his eyes. He was never afraid of killing people. Since the first time he used ice and fire magic to destroy Liao San, killing people was just a release for him. But the scene in front of him was still too bloody. Although he didn't plan to leave anyone alive when he took out the 2 peerless divine blades, his heart was still heavy. He turned around and looked at the face that was distorted because of the pain or the death of his companions. He said indifferently, "Why do you have to force me? Now, do you still think that magicians are useless? Now, do you still look down on the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians' Union? No, you are a demon? As a platoon leader of the Knights, his mental fortitude shouldn't be so weak." However, everything that happened in front of him was incomprehensible to him. He didn't even understand what had just happened. His 9 companions had already lost their lives. "Yes, I am a demon. To those that I hate, I am a demon. They are dead and you are their squadron leader. In hell, they still need you to lead the way. Goodbye." As he said that, he walked along the main road. At this time, there was not a single person walking on the main road, perhaps because it was noon. A red fireball and a blue icicle fell from the sky, and in the same explosion, the last life was taken. Nianbing didn't stop at all. The blizzard lifted his body into the air and flew into the distance. Nianbing realized that he was getting better at killing people. It was as if the identity of the demon killer had gradually invaded his mind. If this was a magical experiment, there was no doubt that he had achieved great success. He would not be soft-hearted towards threats that could affect his freedom. However, he did not know that it was because of this operation that the Ice Moon Empire received news of the war at the front lines a few days later. This caused the Ottoman Empire to suffer heavy losses. This caused a deep crack to appear in the originally friendly relations between the 2 empires. Flying in the air, Nian Bing tried not to think about the scene when he killed Liao San. The first time he killed Liao San was completely engulfed by magic. He did not feel it too clearly, but the scene of flesh and blood splattering everywhere was so vivid. He was also a normal person. His chest felt tight, and he suppressed the nausea and turned his mind to the application of magic. The reason why the real ice and fire magic could be so effective was because of the uniqueness of the origin of ice and fire. However, it was also inseparable from his two peerless blades. Without the roar of the fire god and the sigh of the ice goddess, he would not be able to exert such great power. With his understanding of fire and ice magic, the true power of these two gems was gradually revealed. Their biggest feature was that under the influence of the same magic, they could manifest a completely different power. The higher the level of the magic, the more obvious it was. These two gems seemed to be able to absorb the magic elements in the air. The energy contained within them was endless, especially when they were combined with the blades. If he did not use these two magic staffs, he would only be able to cast the ice and fire magic at the beginning of the third step at most. But after using these two magic staffs, he was able to cast the ice and fire magic at the beginning of the fourth step. Of course, there was another reason why he was able to kill a swordsman and 9 elite warriors so easily, and that was because they underestimated him. After all, the ice and fire magic was not something that anyone could understand. Thinking about the mysteries of magic, Nian Bing's nausea gradually disappeared. Back when he killed Liao San, he had told himself that as long as someone was in his way, the easiest way to deal with them was to destroy them. Therefore, he did not show any mercy. He did not even hesitate after using the magic. The hatred in his heart seemed to be released in the slaughter. As he was flying forward, Nian Bing's heart suddenly tightened. He subconsciously lifted his head to look in front of him and saw 3 magicians floating in his path. They were all holding magic staffs and looking at him with unfriendly expressions. They were wearing green, red, and blue magician robes respectively. The insignia on their chests showed that the magician wearing the green magician robe was a great magician, just like him. The other 2 were only advanced magicians. Nianbing calmed down slightly. He firmly believed that it wouldn't be too much of a problem for him to deal with these 3 magicians with his ice and fire magic. Thus, he decided to meet them head-on. When Nianbing was about 30 meters away from the 3 magicians, he could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because he saw an army camp that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was a camp where at least 100,000 soldiers were stationed. Because the 3 magicians were on a small hill, he did not notice them. Now that he saw them, he immediately thought of the killing intent he had felt before. Could it be that they were the army of the Ice Moon Empire? No. That was impossible. This was already the Ottoman Empire. Looking at the appearance of the camp, it seemed that they were moving in an orderly manner. The knight from before had said that the Hwarong Empire had joined forces with the Kiru Empire to attack the Ottoman Empire. It seemed that the army stationed here was going to support them. Their original purpose should have been to guard against the Ice Moon Empire. Stop! The leading wind magician, Nianbing, raised his magic staff. Nianbing controlled the blizzard to stop. He pretended to be surprised and asked, "What is the meaning of this?" Looking at the blizzard that had not dissipated under Nianbing's feet, the wind magician asked in a deep voice, "You are an ice magician?" Nianbing nodded and said, "That's right. This one is from the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild. I am preparing to head to your country. Do the 3 of you have any business with me?" The wind magician frowned and said, "Right now our army is marching. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, please come with us." What's so good about the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild? Wasn't it already in decline? Looking at your appearance, you should be an advanced magician. For such a young advanced magician to stay in the Ice Moon Empire, there is no future for you. Nianbing's mind raced. What should he do now? Should he go with them, reject them or attack them directly like just now. With the power of ice and fire, he was confident that he could hit them before they could chant the spell. However, he reckoned that they had defensive magic scrolls. Once the battle dragged on, it would be very disadvantageous for him. After all, he was facing an army of 100,000. Even if each of them spat at him, he would drown. His master had said that no matter which country it was, as long as there were more than 10,000 soldiers, there would definitely be strong people. Thinking of this, the smile on his face became even friendlier. 3 magicians, may I ask, why would I follow you back to the camp? The Wind Magician said, let go, we won't make things difficult for you. When the army starts its journey, we will naturally let you go. Of course, you have to show us the badge of your country's magician guild. Nian Bing thought to himself, with the level of his blizzard, if he sped up and escaped now, the other party shouldn't be able to do anything to him. Just as he had this thought, dozens of magicians in different clothes rose up from the main army of the Ottoman Empire. Most of them were wind magicians. It was obvious that they had all been cast by the wind magicians with the level 4 wind soaring spell, allowing them to maintain flight for a period of time. Running? Forget it. With so many magicians, wouldn't he be courting death? Thinking of this, Nian Bing nodded at the wind magician in front of him in a friendly manner and said, okay, I will definitely cooperate. The 3 magicians brought Nian Bing to the previous hillside, and Nian Bing showed his magic badge. However, this time, he showed the badge of a high-level magician. A few days before leaving Ice Snow City, Long Ji had told him to show the badge of an elder in the Ice Moon Empire. That way, he would be able to gain more respect, and it would be more convenient for him to do things. Once he left the Ice Moon Empire, he would have to show another high-level magician badge. After all, Nian Bing was still too young, and the identity of a high-level magician was less likely to be noticed by others. Long Ji had told him that although the other empires seemed to be able to maintain peace on the surface, there wasn't a single empire that didn't want to annex the other empires. Even the Ottoman Empire, which was on good terms with the Ice Moon Empire, had the same idea. Thus, he definitely couldn't participate in this kind of political struggle. If he could hide as far away as possible, a war would happen sooner or later. Right now, the war has really started. Of the 5 great empires on the continent, in terms of strength, the strongest are the Hua-Rong Empire and Alland Empire. As for the Ice Moon Empire, due to the existence of the only god's descent master, the Ice Goddess Priestess, their status is extremely high. Any country that wants to touch them would have to consider the terrifying god's descent technique. The Hwarong Empire was the only one among the other 4 empires that had bought the Ice Goddess's altar. This was because they had a powerful army of fire mages. With 3 fire magi, as well as a large number of high mages and great mages, their overall strength wasn't inferior to the Ice God Tower at all. Nian Bing was very clear about the military strength of the Hwarong Empire. When he was young, he heard from his father that the Hwarong Empire's Order of the Flaming Lion was the #1 knight order on the continent. It was also the only knight order that was equipped with magic cavalry. He didn't know if they had participated in the war this time. Furthermore, with the strength of the Kilu Empire, it wasn't something that Alland could resist. What was war? Nian Bing didn't really understand. However, he knew that his original plan had to be changed. Going to a place where there was war wouldn't be good for him. After the Wind Mage recognized Nian Bing's guild badge, he nodded to him and said with a smile, "You really are someone from the Ice Moon Empire. However, looking at your badge, you shouldn't be someone from the Ice God Tower." Nian Bing sighed softly and said, "My name is Nian Bing. I'm from the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild. Perhaps you also know that our guild situation hasn't been very good. This time, I was entrusted by someone to deliver a letter to your country's leader. What's going on? Why is your country's military strength being mobilized on such a large scale?" He clearly knew the answer, but this was also where he was smart. The Wind Mage smiled and said, "Our president has met with your guild's president long before. We sympathize with your guild's current situation. With a place like the Ice God Tower, the magic guild of any other country wouldn't have a good time either. I heard that your guild's current situation is very bad. It seems that even the royal family's special funds have been confiscated." Nian Bing nodded and said, "The situation is indeed not very good. Due to many reasons, the guild is gradually declining. This is something that can't be helped. Without the support of the country, an organization like our Magic Guild, that consumes a lot of resources, has no chance to develop. Because of this matter, our president has been worried." The Wind Mage wasn't tall. He looked to be in his 40s or 50s. There was a layer of faint green light circulating around his body. His appearance was very ordinary, but his eyes were very sharp. The most distinguishing feature was the large red mole between his eyebrows. He looked at Nian Bing and said, "My name is Sangjia. As the saying goes, if a tree moves, it dies. If a person moves, he will live. Have you ever thought of changing the current situation? The royal family of the Ice Moon Empire relies too much on the Ice God Tower and won't pay any attention to you. Not now, not in the future. If President Long is willing, I think that our Ottoman Empire's Magic Guild is very willing to accept you. Perhaps you also know that our Ottoman Empire's Wind Mages are the main force, and your guild's president is a Wind Archmage. Our president has said more than once that if he could work with President Long, he would be very honored." Nian Bing smiled. Although the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild was gradually declining, they still had over 100 mages. Moreover, there was a top-notch magic expert like Long Ji. It was very normal for other guilds to try to rope them in. "Great Mage Sangjia, I'm afraid that this will be very difficult. You also know that your country has always been on good terms with our empire. If our guild moves together, I'm afraid that it will affect the relationship between the two countries." Sangjia smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to worry about this. I hope that when you return, you can mention this matter to President Long. As long as he is willing, we will naturally have a way." Looking at the other party's cryptic smile, Nian Bing felt that the relationship between the countries was very subtle. However, it would be very difficult for his suggestion to succeed. If Long Ji wanted to leave the Ice Moon Empire, he wouldn't have waited until today. As for the Magic Guild that he founded, he was extremely reluctant to leave. "All right, when I return, I will definitely pass on the message to the president. Thank you for your kind intentions." Sangjia turned his gaze to the Åland army that was moving quickly and orderly. "The continent isn't going to be peaceful anymore. The Hwarong Empire and Kilu Empire have jointly launched an attack on our country. I don't know what they are thinking. Isn't Hwarong afraid that the Longmu Empire, who has always been at odds with them, will take this opportunity to launch a sneak attack? An ambush?" Nian Bing said in surprise. "Are you going to the battlefield?" Sangjia nodded and said, "We have already sent the knights from the Ice Moon Empire to guard the border to report back. Right now, the entire Åland Empire is gathering their forces and marching towards the battlefield. Fortunately, the Hwarong Empire didn't send out their elite Order of the Flaming Lion. However, I heard that more than 10 cities near our borders have already fallen. We will only know the exact situation when we reach the front lines." Nian Bing asked curiously, "How many troops are participating in the war this time?" Sangjia said, "Quite a lot. The Hwarong Empire and Kilu Empire's allied army has a total of 400,000 soldiers. They have split into 3 groups and are advancing into our territory. If it wasn't for the fact that the enemy is too strong, we wouldn't have to send the troops stationed here back. The Hwarong Empire has always been on good terms with the Kilu Empire. They are mortal enemies with the Ice Moon Empire and the Longmu Empire. I really don't understand why they didn't choose the Longmu Empire and chose our country." Nian Bing lowered her head and said, "I don't know anything about war. However, I believe that the invaders won't succeed." Sang Jia turned his head to look at Nian Bing. He found that this handsome young man looked very shy. He couldn't help but have a good impression of him. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen. Your Ice Moon Empire definitely won't let the Huarong Empire and Kilu Empire destroy our country. Otherwise, we will become a springboard for those two empires. The next one to suffer will definitely be your empire. The Longmu Empire is good at defense and not good at offense. They can't really threaten the Huarong Empire and Kilu Empire. On the other hand, your empire's Ice God Tower has always had a deep enmity with the Huarong Empire's Blazing Sect. The Blazing Sect's position in the Huarong Empire is equal to the imperial family. If not for our Ottoman Empire and Longmu Empire standing in the middle, I'm afraid that the Huarong Empire and Ice Moon Empire would already be fighting to the death." Hearing the three words Blazing Sect, Nian Bing's facial muscles couldn't help but twitch. He didn't say anything else. Together with the three external magic of the Ottoman Empire, he waited for the military rank to leave. The 100,000-strong army left along the main road in a majestic manner, forming a winding route on the main road. The cavalry was at the very back. When the heavy cavalry and light cavalry corps left at the same time, the original Lao Zhai had become empty. Sang Jia took out a green whirlwind emblem and handed it to Nian Bing. "After the war is over, even if your President Long doesn't want to join our guild, you can take this emblem with you. You'll find me at the end of the day, and I'll make the arrangements for you." "Alright, we have to leave." "Oh right, if you want to go to the capital, your next stop should be the nearby Ulan city. I suggest that you don't go there. If the letter you sent isn't urgent, it's best that you don't go to the capital for a short period of time. The war is tense now, and the security around the capital is very tight. As a foreign magician, I'm afraid that you won't be welcomed there. Therefore, I suggest that Little Bell go to Lanming City, which is not far from Ulan City, and wait for a period of time. It's best to wait until the war ends before making any plans. As Lanming City is at the rear, it can be said to be the Ottoman Empire's paradise. It has the Empire's best warrior and magic academies. You can go there and take a look when you have time. Alright, we'll meet again someday. O mighty wind, lend me your freedom, and drive the wind of freedom between heaven and earth. Let us grow a pair of wings to fly, far away from the hustle and bustle, far away from all the troubles." As he chanted the incantation, his inconspicuous magic staff emitted an intense green light, which not only enveloped him, but also the other two wind mages. Under the support of the green light, their speed suddenly increased. Going down the hillside, it was as if they really grew wings of the wind, gliding towards the large army in the distance. Seeing this situation, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Sang Jia's level of magic was higher than she had imagined. Although this wind wing spell was a 6th rank support spell, when used on 3 people at the same time, the amount of magic required was not as little as the 6th rank. Looking at his appearance, he should be able to enter the realm of a magic shooter very soon. His suggestion was well-intentioned. Although he had the intention to rope her in, according to what he said, now was indeed not a good time to go to the Ottoman Empire's capital. Chapter 47. Nian Bing took out the map from the space ring and carefully identified the location. Just as Sang Jia had said, Lanming City was parallel to Ulan City. If she wanted to go directly to the Ottoman Empire's capital, Ulan City, she would have to pass through Ulan City. This was the shortest distance. If she went through Lanming City, she would have to take a detour. However, to avoid being affected by the war, going to Lanming City now was obviously the best choice. Anyway, Luo Ro's wedding would only be held 2 years later. There was plenty of time. She might as well stay in Lanming City for a while and use this time to cultivate her magic. At the same time, she could also deepen her practice of cooking. Through the practice with Ming Hui, Nian Bing had a certain understanding of the mysterious jade hand. Although he couldn't practice the mysterious jade hand as special as the mysterious jade hand, with his control of the fire element, the heat wouldn't affect him too much. If he practiced more, he might be able to achieve the effect of breaking the water and protecting his face. Lanmeng City. Let's go to Lanmeng City. Thinking of this, Nian Bing put away the map, chanted the blizzard spell, and went down the hill. The road from Binglan City to Lanmeng City was sparsely populated. Nian Bing had a map this time, so she didn't take the main road. Instead, she looked for a shortcut. She tried to use the blizzard spell to fly for a long time. However, the blizzard spell wasn't a wind elemental spell. Even if she tried her best, she could only fly for a little more than 2 hours. Even so, a 2-hour flight was equivalent to 2 days of walking. Nian Bing realized that this was a very good method of cultivation, and it was very beneficial to the increase of his mana. He decided to give up on walking, and relied purely on the snowstorm to travel. Whenever his mana ran out, he would find a secluded place and use a magic scroll to defend himself. Once his mana recovered, he would continue his journey. Relying on the speed of the blizzard, she reached her temporary destination 3 days later, Lanmeng City. Lanmeng City was already in sight from afar. Perhaps it was because this was the backyard of the Ottoman Empire. There wasn't much defense. The city walls weren't tall, only 10 meters or so. It couldn't be compared to Binglan City's level of defense. The city gates were wide open, and there weren't many people passing by. There were only 4 Ottoman Empire soldiers guarding the city gate. The people of the Ottoman Empire were not too different from the people of the Ice Moon Empire, except that they were shorter in stature. Their hair was mainly blue, purple, and black. The people of Åland who had blue hair were almost the same as the people of the Ice Moon Empire. It was extremely rare to see someone with blonde hair like him. Nian Bing strode towards Lanmeng City. Since she had decided to wait here until the end of the war, she had to find a cheap and good inn. While thinking, Nian Bing had already arrived at the gate of Lanmeng City. The guards didn't make things difficult for him because of his blonde hair. He didn't even look at him and just let him go in. Entering Lanmeng City, he immediately had a special feeling. The entire city seemed to be enveloped by a peaceful aura. It was close to noon, and there weren't many people on the street. However, from their faces, one could see a comfortable and satisfied smile. "Little brother, are you here to sign up?" Nian Bing was looking for an inn on the street when a strange voice suddenly appeared behind her. She turned around and saw a middle-aged man in his 30s looking at her. He was thin and small, and the smile on his face looked a little obscene. Before Nian Bing could speak, he took the initiative and said, "Looking at your appearance, you should be a foreigner. You must have come to our Lanmeng City to study. What do you want to learn? Martial arts? That's too common. Once you join the army, war is merciless. It's better to learn a skill that will be useful for the rest of your life." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Must one come to Lanmeng City to study?" The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment and said, "Are you not here to study? For a foreigner of your age to come to Lanmeng City, other than to study, I really can't think of any other reason. Lanmeng City is known as the City of Academies, and that's not for nothing. We have academies for all kinds of professions in our city, especially the only comprehensive academy in the continent. It's the largest academy in the entire continent. Although the tuition fees are a little high, you'll definitely be able to learn the knowledge you need from there. Young people should learn more. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to learn when you enter society." The words City of Academies aroused Nian Bing's interest. "Then what can you learn from the comprehensive academy here?" The middle-aged man rubbed his hands, and his small eyes revealed a look of a target who had taken the bait. Although it was just a flash, it was still caught by Nian Bing. "Little brother, the most famous place in our Lanmeng City is Lanmeng Academy, which is the comprehensive academy that I mentioned to you just now. There are dozens of the most popular industries there, and each of them has very strong teaching staff. According to the different industries, the tuition fee is also different. Moreover, it's not something that can be enrolled just because you have money. You also need to pass a certain examination. If you can have a graduation certificate from Lanmeng Academy, you can find a suitable job for yourself no matter where you go in the future. Of course, the examination to enter the academy is a little difficult. If you don't pass the examination, it doesn't matter. Our Lanmeng city has many small academies that are involved in a wide range of industries and are not inferior to Lanmeng Academy. Moreover, the tuition fee is much lower. Sometimes, the teachers of Lanmeng Academy will also come to these academies to teach some classes. How about it? Which industry are you interested in? Hearing this, Nian Bing couldn't help but recall that when she had just arrived at Ice Snow City, Xuejing had asked her which culinary school she had graduated from. She subconsciously asked, "Then, does Lanmeng Academy have a culinary department?" Culinary? When the middle-aged man heard these two words, he couldn't help but be stunned. He couldn't imagine that this tall and handsome young man in front of him would be interested in the culinary profession, which had always been at the bottom of the continent. However, his reaction was very fast. After being stunned for a moment, he hurriedly smiled and said, of course there is. Being a chef is also a very common profession. Do you want to learn culinary skills? No problem. In our academy city, there's nothing that you can't think of that we don't teach. How about it, little brother? Do you need me to introduce you? No matter if it's Lanmeng Academy or an ordinary small academy, I have connections. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, then I'll have to trouble you to introduce me to Lanmeng Academy. The middle-aged man chuckled and said, this is simple. As an ordinary profession, the culinary department's fees are relatively low and modest. However, that's your own business. As long as you can pass the exam, if your results are outstanding, you may even be able to get the treatment of free tuition. However, as for the recommendation fee, speaking up to this point, he rubbed his fingers. When Nian Bing had started to tell her about the academy, she had already understood what this person did. However, he had just arrived here and wasn't familiar with everything. Listening to his explanation was very beneficial to her. At this moment, seeing the other party reveal his true colors, she couldn't help but smile and said, the recommendation fee is easy. As long as you can let me participate in the exam, that's enough. However, does this Lanmeng Academy enroll students at any time? Could it be that there are no special rules for this? The middle-aged man said, of course not. Lanmeng Academy is very special. No matter which department, you can take the exam at any time. As long as you pass, the department's tutor will arrange for you to enter the corresponding grade to study. The culinary department seems to be divided into 5 grades. However, I have to remind you that if you want to enter Lanmeng Academy, you must have a certain foundation in your profession. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to pass the exam. As for the recommendation fee, I'll charge you 1 gold coin. The price is cheap. With my recommendation, you can take the exam today. How about it? 1 gold coin? You might as well go and rob. Nian Bing said unhappily. She had only spent 1 gold coin to buy the entire Sky Spring Pavilion's kitchen utensils. This middle-aged man really knew how to demand an exorbitant price. The middle-aged man chuckled and said, my fee is very reasonable. It's definitely worth it. If you don't have my recommendation, you will need to wait until there are 10 people before you can take the exam. Every day you delay, won't you miss out on learning a lot of things? Alright, how about this? Seeing that I met you the moment I arrived at the city gate, I'll give you a 20% discount. That's cheap enough. Nian Bing laughed. Cheap? 8 silver coins may not be much to some rich kids, but look at me robbing. Do I look like a rich kid? Moreover, rich kids probably don't learn culinary arts. 1 silver coin, this is the price I can afford. Any more and I won't do. I'd rather wait until there are 10 people. 1 silver coin? Kid, you're too stingy. Once he heard that Nian Bing could only pay so little, the middle-aged man's attitude immediately changed. His original little brother directly dropped to Kid. Nian Bing said indifferently, "You just need to say a few good words for me. 1 silver coin is already quite a lot. If you don't want to, then forget it. I'll find it myself." The middle-aged man's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. "All right, 1 silver coin it is. But I'll say it first. I'm only responsible for bringing you there. If you can't pass the exam or don't have the money to pay the tuition fee, I won't care. I won't refund you the money. Come, follow me." Saying that, he walked down the street towards the city. Did Nian Bing really care about money that much? Of course not. He just wanted to get his money's worth. A culinary school. Not bad. If he studied here, not only would he not have to look for a place to stay, he might even be able to interact with some culinary expert. Using the time at night to cultivate magic was indeed the best choice now. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but be glad that he came to this city. Now, he only hoped that the Lanming Academy was really like what the middle-aged man said, worthy of the title of the continent's #1 academy. Perhaps because Nian Bing paid too little, the middle-aged man didn't bother to waste his breath on him. He led him into the depths of Lanming City through many twists and turns. As they walked, Nian Bing observed the surrounding environment. Soon, he discovered that although the middle-aged man was a little greedy, he wasn't lying. Along the way, he already saw no less than 10 places with academy signboard. Although they didn't look big, they were involved in various industries, including forging, magic, martial arts, politics, tailoring, commerce, etc. They even had some involvement in some of the more remote small industries. The surroundings of these academies were also the more prosperous areas of Lanming City. He could often see similarly dressed young people walking on the street. The logo on their clothes clearly stated the name of the academy. After walking all the way from the north of the city to the west, the middle-aged man finally stopped. "We're here. It's here." Nian Bing looked in the direction he was pointing, but didn't see any academy signboards. It was a very ordinary medium-sized restaurant with the words, "Ru Jia Restaurant," hanging above it. There was no one at the entrance. "Here? Did you make a mistake? Is this an academy?" Nian Bing was a little displeased. The middle-aged man snorted and said exasperatedly, "Idiot, who said I'm taking you directly to the academy? If you don't go through the assessment, it's useless even if you go to the academy. This restaurant is Lanming Academy's culinary arts assessment site. Go on in. Give me the referral fee first, and I'll take you in to take the assessment." Nian Bing took out a silver coin and threw it to the middle-aged man. He wasn't afraid that this obscene fellow would go back on his word. His body wasn't as tough as those high-level warriors of the Iron Blood Knight. The middle-aged man tossed the silver coin in his hand and put it into his pocket with some dissatisfaction. "Follow me." He threw down a sentence indifferently and took the lead to walk towards Ru Jia Restaurant. When they entered the restaurant, it was more lively than Nian Bing had imagined. The restaurant's lobby was several hundred square meters, and the 50 to 60 tables were fully occupied. The service staff shuttled back and forth endlessly, and the business seemed to be quite good. The middle-aged man brought Nian Bing to the counter. Behind the counter stood a young girl. She wasn't tall and only reached Nian Bing's chest. She was wearing a blue shirt and pants without too many decorations, looking very plain. Her long blue hair was combed into a large braid that hung down her back. She had her head lowered and was fiddling with an abacus, as if she was calculating. "Miss Meng, hello, I've brought you a new student." The middle-aged man smiled apologetically and said to the young girl behind the counter. The young girl raised her head. When Nian Bing saw her appearance, his heart was suddenly stunned. This young girl in blue had a pair of big purple eyes. Her gaze was very calm and somewhat cold. Although she wasn't tall and wasn't as plump as Xu Ejing, she naturally had a kind of otherworldly aura. When she saw the middle-aged man, the coldness in her purple eyes became more intense. "What are you doing here? Haven't you been pulling people from the martial arts academy recently? How come you have time to come to our place today?" The middle-aged man pointed to Nian Bing beside him and said, "Miss Meng, it's like this. Today I met this kid outside the city gate. He wants to enter the academy to learn cooking, so I brought him here." Miss Meng raised her head and looked at Nian Bing. From her cold eyes, Nian Bing didn't see any emotional fluctuations. "Him? You should bring him to the cosmetology department. There are many beauties there. Maybe he can charm a few of them. He can directly enter the academy without the examination. We don't accept trash here. You can take him away." The middle-aged man laughed and said, "I don't think he's cut out to be a chef. Anyway, I've already brought him here. Since you don't want to accept him, then it has nothing to do with me. Kid, you can't blame me. If you have the ability, then persuade Miss Meng yourself. She will be in charge of the examination this time." After saying this, the middle-aged man turned around and left, not giving Nian Bing a chance to react. Nian Bing didn't pay attention to the middle-aged man. Bringing her here was already enough for her. This cold and elegant Miss Meng made Nian Bing a little curious. From her body, Nian Bing could see that this Lan Meng Academy had some skills. He didn't pay attention to Miss Meng's appearance, but her hands. She had a pair of slender hands. Her nails were neatly trimmed. There were no ornaments on her hands. When she fiddled with the abacus, her fingers were extremely flexible. This was definitely a pair of hands that only a high-level chef could have. Seeing Nian Bing still standing there, Miss Meng couldn't help but frown. "Didn't you hear my words? You can go now. Don't stand here and be an eyesore. Why are you so tall?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "It doesn't seem to be my fault that I'm tall. Just now, that person said that as long as he brought me here, I can accept the examination. I haven't taken the examination yet, so how can I leave?" Miss Meng snorted and said, "I'll teach you a lesson. Just now, that guy is called Li San. He is a famous green-skinned chef in the city. By chance, he saved the dean of our academy. The dean unintentionally promised him that as long as it was a student brought by him, he could directly take the examination without waiting for 10 people. But who would have thought that he would seize this opportunity to make a living and charge a high referral fee? Presumably, you also spent a lot of money. However, your money was wasted. In the future, don't trust others so easily. This is a lesson for you." Nian Bing smiled and said, "A silver coin for a lesson, it doesn't seem cheap. Since Li San has the dean's permission, then I should be able to participate in the examination." Miss Meng said indifferently, "Your examination is already over. So, you can go now. We don't accept incompetent people here. Even if you study for 5 years, you won't have any achievements. Being a chef may be a lowly profession. But not everyone can do this profession well." Nian Bing laughed in her heart. Even if her cooking skills hadn't reached the top, she certainly wasn't an incompetent person. She curiously asked, "Miss Meng, can you tell me how you tested me and determined that I'm not a chef material?" Miss Meng was obviously impatient. She coldly said, "It's very simple, your hands. Although your clothes are simple, a person's temperament won't be easily changed. Plus, your hands obviously haven't worked. A man wearing a ring, do you think you're very handsome? In my eyes, you're just an idiot in cooking." "I see. You're engaged in some industries that focus on appearance, so there are still alternatives. Leave here, we don't welcome students like you." Nian Bing looked at his hands. He knew that this Miss Meng had already regarded him as a playboy. It was useless to explain anything now. Only facts could prove everything. "Miss Meng, no matter what, I spent a silver coin to buy this examination. If you let me go like this, I will definitely not give up. How about this, give me a chance and let me try cooking a dish." Miss Meng looked at Nian Bing with some surprise. She didn't expect Nian Bing to be so persistent. She coldly said, You don't have to go through so much trouble to cook. Do you see the cold dishes over there? As long as you can sell all the cold dishes in half an hour, it proves that you have the talent to be a chef. You can improve these cold dishes at will. Of course, the premise is that no one will die from eating them. Nian Bing looked in the direction of Miss Meng's finger. He saw that not far from the counter, there was another counter. The counter was covered with transparent gauze. There were more than 10 cold dishes inside. These were not ordinary small plates, but large plates. It seemed that each plate of cold dishes could be filled with more than 10 ordinary plates. In this way, at least each guest at the table had to buy more than 3 plates of cold dishes to sell all these. Selling these in half an hour was obviously difficult for him. Smiling slightly, Nian Bing didn't say anything. He went to the water route next to the counter and washed his hands. Then he went to the back of the cold dish counter. There was already a young chef behind the counter. He naturally heard Miss Meng's words. When he saw Nian Bing walk over, he gestured for him to take a seat. He then stood aside with an expression as if he was waiting to watch a good show. Simply looking at the style of the cold dishes in front of him, Nian Bing picked up the chopsticks and tasted each of them. He began his promotion process with confidence. First, he chose a plate of cold cucumber. He directly took the large tray out from behind the gauze curtain on the counter and put it on the counter. Then he said to the chef next to him, "Do you have a kitchen knife?" The chef froze for a moment and said, "This is to buy cold dishes, not cooked food. What do you want a kitchen knife for?" He didn't think that the handsome young man in front of him, who seemed to be younger than him, could do anything. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, "How do you want me to sell without a kitchen knife? Please provide me with a kitchen knife. If I can't sell it in half an hour, I will naturally leave." "Give him a kitchen knife." Miss Meng's voice sounded. The young chef complied and ran to the back of the kitchen. After a while, he came back with a kitchen knife. Taking the kitchen knife, Nian Bing shook it in his hand. He spread the cucumber on the plate with the spoon used for cold dishes. Then he put his thumb on the back of the knife and his index finger on the edge of the knife. His middle finger, ring finger, and little finger clenched the handle of the knife, making the whole knife stand up. The wide and thick head of the knife was not suitable for him to use, but he didn't want to expose his magic, so he could only reluctantly do this. He turned his head to look at Miss Meng. She was looking at him, but now her eyes no longer had the disdain from before. Instead, it was replaced with a dignified look. It seemed that she had paid attention to the way he held the knife. "Green Dream Cucumber, does anyone want it?" Nian Bing raised his voice and shouted. The silence in the restaurant was suddenly broken. All the guests cast their eyes in his direction. Most of them had a look of disgust. However, their expressions soon turned into surprise because the knife in Nian Bing's hand moved. The wide and thick kitchen knife seemed to dance in Nian Bing's hand. The tip of the knife in front of him was like a spinning top. His wrist seemed to have no bones, changing into any position he wanted. The cold cucumber in the large tray did not splash out under the stimulation of the tip of the knife, but the originally diamond-shaped cucumber was changing shape. What was the Green Dream Cucumber? It was very simple. All the cucumbers turned into the word Meng, and the crumbs of the cucumber were cleverly picked to the side and separated from the cucumber itself. There was no effect at all. Nian Bing's hand was very steady. Almost every time it trembled, there would be a dozen cucumbers turned into the word Meng, but the kitchen knife in his hand was really not suitable. So the word Meng was not exactly the same. There were some differences in some places, but for now it was enough. The guests at the table near the cold dish counter saw it the most clearly. Just the knife in Nian Bing's hand was enough to attract them. One of the middle-aged men with a medium build got up and walked to the cold dish counter. When he saw the changes in the cucumbers on the plate, he suddenly opened his mouth in surprise. This was not completely in the category of cooking. Such exquisite knife skills were not something an ordinary person like him could understand. The knife in Nian Bing's hand stopped moving. He smiled and said, "Do you want a plate? 1 silver coin for a plate." The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. 1 silver coin? Are you kidding me? This was originally 3 copper coins a plate, but now it is twice as long? Nian Bing proudly said, "Do you think this word meng is not worth 1 silver coin?" The middle-aged man Nianbing gave a thumbs up and said, "It is, young man. Your saber skills are truly marvelous. Give me a plate, 1 silver coin it is." Nianbing smiled and handed over a plate of green dream cucumbers. He pointed to the counter and said, "Please give the money to Miss Meng. Who else needs this green dream cucumbers?" Several old guests nearby stood up. Even if they didn't buy, their curiosity urged them to come and see what was going on. When they saw the cucumbers with the word Meng, they couldn't help but be stunned. Such a magical knife skill made them open their pockets to buy a plate. Just when Nian Bing wanted to continue selling his handmade green dream cucumbers, Miss Meng's figure appeared in front of him. "Well, don't sell it. Is the word brocade only worth 1 silver coin?" Miss Meng looked at Nian Bing with a complicated expression and stopped him from continuing to cut the cucumbers. Nian Bing smiled and put down the kitchen knife in his hand. "Then, am I still an idiot in cooking? I don't know if I have passed the test?" Miss Meng nodded her head and said, "Come with me. Everyone, I'm sorry, this is a new student of our cooking department. Sorry to disturb everyone's meal." After that, she took Nian Bing to the back. Passing through the busy kitchen, Miss Meng directly took Nian Bing to the back courtyard. "Who did you learn the word brocade from?" Miss Meng's tone was somewhat hurried. Nian Bing said, "An old man taught me. I don't know what his name is. After teaching me knife skills for a few days, he left." Miss Meng's big eyes widened even more. "What did you say? Only a few days? Do you think I am a fool? Ordinary people practice the word brocade. Without the guidance of a famous teacher, it is impossible to have any results even after decades. Who did you learn your knife skills from?" Nian Bing said indifferently, "Miss Meng, don't you think you are asking too much? Who I learned the knife skills from is my secret. I came to the cooking department to attend classes, not to be examined by you." Miss Meng's anxious expression calmed down a bit. She nodded her head and said, "I'm sorry, it was my fault to look down on you before. I apologize to you." After that, she bowed slightly to Nian Bing. Nian Bing wanted to help her, but she remembered that men and women were different. She raised her hands in the air. "Miss Meng, you don't have to be polite. From your dexterous hands, you should also be good at knife skills. If there is a chance, we can learn more from each other. The reason I'm here is to deepen my skills." The coldness in Miss Meng's eyes weakened a bit and said, "Let's go, I will take you to the school to register. Our cooking department also has various courses. I will recommend you to the dean." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Then I will trouble Miss Meng. I also hope to learn more knowledge here." Miss Meng nodded her head. She was obviously much more polite to Nian Bing. "Please follow me." The two people left the restaurant from the backyard. Under her guidance, they walked towards the back. When Nian Bing really arrived at Lanmeng Academy, the surprise in his heart was difficult to hide. Rather than calling it an academy, it was better to call it a small city. The walls surrounding the academy were actually 5 meters wide and 10 meters high. Even the guards at the entrance were wearing the standard military uniform of the Ottoman Empire. Only the huge plaque hanging on the top floor of the entrance could tell that this was an academy. Miss Meng looked at Nian Bing's almost idiotic expression and couldn't help but laugh. She, who was always cold, suddenly laughed. Like a spring breeze thawing ice, she attracted Nian Bing's gaze. She said, "Lanmeng Academy has a long history. It is one of the oldest academies in the Yangon continent. Our academy occupies a third of Lanmeng Academy's area. It can be said to be a city within a city. The walls you see are the works of the academy's architecture students. It involves the defense system, drainage system, counterattack system, and many other fields. It is said that the defensive power is much stronger than the average small city. The guards at the entrance are not real soldiers, but students of the martial arts department. The Academy's martial arts department is the most famous among the various departments. The dean of the martial arts department is one of the most senior swordsmen in the continent. He is ranked 5th among the top 10 martial arts experts in the continent. The attraction is that the martial arts department has the most students in the academy. They account for about a fifth of the entire academy. From our martial arts department, many talents have been sent to the Empire. As long as they are qualified graduates, they will be recruited by the Empire's various knight regiments. They even have the opportunity to enter the Empire's trump card, the Silver Feather Knight Regiment. Nian Bing secretly praised the scale of this Lanmeng Academy, but the expression on his face had already returned to normal. He nodded his head and said, "The Academy's strength is really strong. However, I am not that interested in the other departments. Miss Meng, can you introduce us to the culinary department? Are you a teacher or a student? Looking at your appearance, you should be less than 20 years old."